I gained the ability to negotiate with ghosts and gods. 1 sentence could repel a tiger demon. 2 sentences could summon the black and white impermanence. 3 sentences could help the dragon emperor ascend to godhood. It was all because, while on a company team-building outing, he accidentally stumbled upon the legendary Lank chess game. He haphazardly placed a piece at the center of the board. Unexpectedly, this allowed him to transcend the mundane world, reincarnated outside the 3 realms. But when he wanted to leave, a group of police officers suddenly blocked his way. From them, he learned that he had been missing for over half a month. Then, with a blink of his eyes, he found himself in a hospital bed. But when he tried to wake up again, they found themselves transmigrated into the body of a weak beggar. Although they could sense the world around them, their body remained immobile. They waited in the temple for quite a while. Only then did a group of men seeking shelter from the rain arrive. When they entered, they saw that Ji Yuan had not yet died. One of them kindly helped Ji Yuan sit by the stove. He was carefully taken care of. But not long after, a deafening tiger's roar came from a distance. It directly disturbed everyone. And Ji Yuan also regained his ability to move because of this misfortune. At this moment, a lost scholar suddenly arrived in front of the temple. He was currently discussing something with everyone. After listening for a while, it became clear. It turned out that their group had encountered a 1,000-year-old ginseng. Just as I was about to pick them, my teammate accidentally fell into a pit, so he followed the light to find the others to help with the rescue. But in Ji Yuan's eyes, the one who came to request a rescue wasn't human at all. It was clearly a ghost wearing human skin. And then there was the tiger's roar just now. This made Ji Yuan suspect that the ghost in front of him might be the one responsible for the tiger's misdeeds. Feeling something was off, Ji Yuan immediately called for a stop from Captain Zhang Shilin. He informed them that there was something wrong with the young man in front of them. As the captain, Zhang Shilin seemed to have noticed something unusual as well, so he directly took out a torch and briefly tested it. To their surprise, the young man in front of them, he turned into a formless wisp of smoke. It turned out that he had been eaten by the tiger demon while he was out gathering herbs. The tiger demon outside sensed the ghost's disappearance at this moment, and the tiger demon outside immediately sensed the ghost's disappearance. It roared angrily at Ji Yuan inside the house. We have no connection. Why are you helping them in this mountain temple? With this roar, everyone is holding weapons, blocking the door. Meanwhile, Ji Yuan explains that he's merely repaying the favor of that bowl of hot water. It turns out that before Ji Yuan's reincarnation, the body was filled with death energy. Now, after being reincarnated, it is brimming with vitality. Lord who thought that some expert was breaking through to a legendary, profound realm. So, he wanted to seek an opportunity from this expert. But little did he expect that at this moment, Ji Yuan would take the initiative. He directly asked the Tiger Lord how many people he had eaten. This made the Tiger Lord feel quite embarrassed. He was afraid that saying too much would offend people. Saying too little would make him seem insincere. Fortunately, he remembered a scholar he had eaten before. He summoned the scholar's lingering ghost. He promised that as long as he helped him answer properly, let his soul return to its homeland. Under the scholar's guidance, Lord Tiger replied, I have eaten humans for 53 years now. But for me, Lord Tiger, killing humans is like killing animals. I don't kill when I'm full. I don't kill those who don't disturb me. I don't kill the old, the weak, the sick, or the disabled. I only kill those who deserve to die. His words are full of confidence, implying that his killings are justified. But Ji Yuan's next words made the Tiger King abandon his idea of eating him. He said, humans may be the masters of all things, but you are also the source of all evil. Demons easily become addicted to eating humans. Therefore, it's easy to be plagued by evil spirits. This is the path to destruction. The way of the 8 demons. Reduce surplus to supplement deficiency. The way of man. Reduce deficiency to serve surplus. The moment those words left his mouth, the Tiger Lord was so frightened that cold sweat poured down his face. In order to cultivate and seek a method of rescue, Ji Yuan spoke again. Cultivation is like being a person. When the body and mind are upright, the Tao can be achieved. As soon as he finished speaking, Lord Tiger suddenly understood. Ignoring Ji Yuan's objections, he hurriedly knelt and performed the 3 kneels and 6 bows before him. When the others saw this, they realized that the beggar in front of them was an immortal. They all quickly knelt in reverence. After Lord Tiger left, one of them asked, Why did you not act sooner, Master? Ji Yuan smiled bitterly and said that he was in a crucial moment of cultivating his Tao heart. It's fortunate enough that he's still alive. Everyone stopped talking after hearing that. When everyone was about to leave the next day, they found Ji Yuan still asleep. They thought the master was cultivating, and dared not disturb him. They left some money and provisions beside Ji Yuan and left. But unexpectedly, one group left and another arrived. In the evening, A group of martial artists arrived at the temple, saying they wanted to hunt the tiger. They claimed to have received a summons from the county office below. Seeing their confident demeanor, it seemed they truly believed they could defeat the tiger. Ji Yuan looked at these righteous and chivalrous martial artists, and didn't want to see them die because of this. So Ji Yuan spoke up and asked, "How do you plan to deal with the monsters?" To his surprise, they said, "First, use live bait to lure them, then surround the hungry tiger together." This tactless answer left Ji Yuan feeling both frustrated and exasperated. It seemed like these people were here to get themselves killed. Fortunately, after a brief interaction, Ji Yuan found that they weren't bad at heart. They are a group of rare kind-hearted people in the martial world, but they worry that they might die at the mouth of the Tiger King. They also fear that speaking too much might annoy others. They only remind people that this tiger has a spirit. Mentioning its name may save one's life. Although others don't really believe it, they still took note of it. So, at night, they placed live bait under the tree. They waited for the Tiger Lord's appearance, but they didn't expect that they were waiting for a 1,000-year-old demon. Not only was it as swift as the wind, but it could also speak. Seeing this, everyone was startled. No matter how high their martial arts skills were, they couldn't resist the Tiger Lord's attack. Just as the Tiger Lord was about to devour them, they promptly mentioned Ji Yuan's name. Upon hearing it, Hu Jun retracted his bared fangs. Remembering Ji Yuan's advice from yesterday, he directly brought the group before Ji Yuan. Although Hu Jun performed a disciple's bow before Ji Yuan, his face clearly showed his displeasure. "Master, these 8 people wanted to kill me. I am about to kill these 8 people, and it could be considered the right path of righteousness. Why won't you let me kill them, sir?" This question made Ji Yuan feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. Fortunately, Ji Yuan asked in return, "Do you know why these 8 people came to this mountain to hunt tigers?" Hu Jun shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Ji Yuan replied, "They are not here for money. They do not act for fame, but choose to climb the mountain and kill the tiger to protect the innocent. Such rare humans, although they can be killed, if we spare them today, it will also be a great act of merit. If they commit evil in the future, you can always eat them later." These words were spoken. Lord Tiger couldn't help but laugh to the heavens, because he believed this was a plan, a chance bestowed upon him by Master Yuan. It meant his transformation was imminent. For this, Lord Tiger said he was eternally grateful, but he could offer everyone a token of his appreciation. Lord Tiger spat out a white tiger skin from his mouth, then it disappeared without a trace. And at this moment, Ji Yuan inexplicably found a black flag in his hands. Following that, everyone, using the tiger skin, and Ji Yuan, returned to the town overnight. Then, early the next morning, news of the tiger's demise spread throughout Ning'an County, and Ji Yuan, having just transmigrated, wanted to understand the current social customs and structure. So, upon learning that others were returning to their sects, he declined the invitation from the heroes to leave the city. He decided to first find a house and live here for a while. So, he entrusted the heroes to help him search. After spending the whole afternoon browsing, he found a house that was quite good. Not only was it affordable, but it was also elegant and spacious inside. "I heard this house only costs 36 taels of silver." Ji Yuan immediately wanted to buy it. He said there's just a little dust. It'll be fine after a bit of cleaning. Lu Qingfeng helped Ji Yuan get the house deed. "I heard that this house has had 3 owners in the past 7 years. Either illness or accident." "What? This is a haunted house." He was about to get angry, when he suddenly remembered what Ji Yuan had said. "A little bit of dirt. Clean it up. Mr. Ji is an expert. It should be fine." Then he went to take care of some formalities. Ji Yuan was leaning by the window, lost in thought. Suddenly, my arm felt numb, like an electric shock. A phantom image of a flag appeared, along with a tingling current around my fingertips. What is this? But the question is, what can I do with it? Open my Ren and do meridians. Suddenly, a gentle breeze began to blow in the room. Wisps of faint, ethereal energy appeared. The ethereal energy swirled around the illusory chess pieces, forming a tiny vortex. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Ji Yuan said, "Come in." Lu Qingfeng handed Ji Yuan the deed and keys. Ji Yuan looked delighted. From his past life to this one, I finally have my first home in life. The next morning, Ji Yuan bid farewell to the tiger-vanquishing heroes. He shouted, "We'll meet again if fate allows." Then he went to buy some new clothes. Surprisingly, they fit perfectly. And he also bought furniture, clothes and daily necessities. He had the boss deliver everything to his home. The boss's face was full of fear. Ji Yuan asked doubtfully, "What's wrong?" The boss didn't dare offend the big client. He hurriedly said he would send someone. After everything was delivered, the shop assistants hurriedly fled. Ji Yuan thought, is there something fishy about this house? He looked at a well in front of him, sealed with stones. I thought this well gave an uneasy feeling. Escaped the tiger's mouth, only to fall into another trap. Night fell. Ji Yuan tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and he felt increasingly cold. What's that sound? The wooden planks covering the well, which were weighted down with stones, were slowly being lifted. The wood groaned under the strain. Then, with a sudden bang, Ji Yuan, lying in bed, snapped his eyes open. A wave of icy coldness washed over him. A large mass of dark energy burst from the well. Ji Yuan pulled the bed covers around himself. He mentally cursed the person who sold him the house. Through the gap, he saw a pitch-black humanoid silhouette. Is this already a vengeful spirit? Escape. It's too late to run now. What should I do? As the vengeful spirit drew closer, white vapor began leaving his body. Is it sucking my yang energy? Ji Yuan only felt that breathing was becoming more and more difficult. His body was gradually becoming immobile. He had survived situations far more desperate than this. But now, he was about to fall here. I refuse to accept this. That chess game. Do something quickly. Ji Yuan gritted his teeth. He yelled, I won't accept this. At the same moment, he suddenly stood up. His arm was raised in a sword-like gesture. At his fingertip, an illusory chess piece formed. Get out of here. He pointed a finger at the evil spirit in front of him. A sharp, shrill scream echoed. The shadow was violently sent flying. It was directly flung out the door. The shadow clearly got scared. It quickly passed through the door, and fled into the well. On the other side, Ning'an County's city god temple. Where is the night patrol? Hurry to the soul-locking well in the south of the city and investigate. 2 Incha, underworld officials, received the order. They turned into 2 ghostly figures and flew out. Ji Yuan sat up from the bed, his face still showing signs of surviving the calamity. He thought to himself that he needed to run away quickly. Otherwise, who knows what would happen next time. Suddenly, 2 messengers of death floated to the door. Ji Yuan realized he could clearly see them. Not again, ghosts. The Yin official went straight to the well. He found that most of the evil energy in the well had dissipated. It was the perfect opportunity to kill him. Ji Yuan thought, do they think I can't see them? So one Yin official went back to report, and the other stayed to guard. He never expected the city god to actually be real. Are there immortals here? Since they've come, I guess I don't need to run anymore. After all, it cost 36 taels, and I can also witness some demon slaying. Incha turned to look at Ji Yuan. Could it be that it's an evil aura? Suddenly, a strong scent of sandalwood filled the air. Ji Yuan turned his head to look. Is the city god personally arriving? The Yin officials are paying their respects. Greetings to Lord Wu, Lord Zhongshan, Lord Punisher of Evil, Lord Inspector. My goodness. This is a bit of an over-the-top display, isn't it? Wu Pan saw Ji Yuan. He asked, is this the newly arrived mortal? Anything unusual? His subordinate replied, nothing. The house's aura has greatly diminished. What's going on? The Yin official replied, that vengeful ghost suddenly screamed loudly tonight. It seems to have been severely injured. Wu Pongguan analyzed, could it be that a master passed by, and helped us out? FAE said to subdue the devil first. Then we'll investigate slowly. Correctional review indicates that we must seize the opportunity. Rewarding the good also has a review. So Wu Pongguan began to issue orders. All constables, prepare the soul-locking formation. Yes, sir. Ji Yuan thought, here it comes, here it comes. They're going to make their move. But do they need such a large-scale formation? Several Yama's constables, holding black flags, enveloped the courtyard's mid-air with a thin membrane. Is this the soul-locking formation? Wu Pan sees that everything is ready. He orders the soul collectors to take action. A few soul collectors throw out the soul-binding chains, and toss them into the well. A sound is heard. With the shaking of the chains, a vengeful spirit is pulled out of the well. It screams in panic. Ji Yuan was stunned. Was that just now this thing? The vengeful spirit is struggling like a trapped beast. A dark shadow extends to attack the Incha, but it is easily dodged. The martial judge shouted, cut. Several Incha with swords drew their blades and charged forward. You vile creature, tonight, I'll make your soul scatter. Wu Pan and the others summoned their magical tools. They all charged forward, attacking the evil spirit. There was a loud explosion. Yin energy and deathly aura erupted. 2 Yin officers were knocked flying. As the smoke dispersed, 1 Yin officer blocked in front of Ji Yuan. Finally, they are protecting the onlookers. Ji Yuan thought to himself, how strange. My eyes can't see ordinary things clearly, but I can see these things that ordinary people can't. It seems like this monster is finished. The monster suddenly erupted. Countless arms emerged. They all grabbed at the surrounding Yin officials. Ordinary magical tools couldn't even cut through them. With a forceful movement of the arm, The Yin official was shattered. The chains entangling the evil spirit also broke their mortal roots. Taking the opportunity, it struggled with all its might. It looked like the chains were about to be shaken loose. The martial judge shouted loudly. The other 4 people urged their magic together, to strike at the monster stubbornly resisting. The monster writhed in pain, rolling back and forth. It let out a heartbreaking shriek. Ji Yuan collapsed to the ground. If I had been like this just now, I would have been finished. Wu Pan leapt forward, but I almost got bitten by the monster. I fell heavily to the ground. The monster took the opportunity to break all the chains. It completely broke free. Ji Yuan was completely panicked. Unexpectedly, the situation took a turn for the worse, and his life was in danger. Ji Yuan thought, no, this won't do. I need to get out of here quickly. Thinking, he suddenly stood up. Which monster in the sky saw it? It immediately shrank back into the web, as if it had been greatly frightened. It didn't dare to move. Wu Pan saw it was a good opportunity. He shouted, attack. The chains of the many Yin officers swung. The 4 officials chanted at the same time. Then, the momentum surged. He led everyone in a leap, charging towards the monster. Judge's pen, soul-striking whip, inspection cloth, longevity robe. Taking advantage of the time and place, they attacked the ferocious ghost with all their might. Ji Yuan held his breath, watching as the monster was finally dispersed. It was eventually reduced to ashes. Ji Yuan let out a sigh of relief and sat down. Thankfully, the righteous side won. He looked up. He found that the officials and the Grim Reapers were all standing in front of him. Gu Yuan thought, could they be here to silence me? But to his surprise, several officials bowed to Ji Yuan. You say we have poor eyesight, unaware that a master was here all along. Thank you, master, for your help. Ji Yuan was extremely flustered, not knowing what to say. Wu Pan clasped his hands and said, I was wondering earlier, which master had injured this evil creature so badly. I didn't expect to just sit in the courtyard all this time. Then the officials bid farewell and left. They went to report to the city god. Then there was a swoosh sound. They all flew away. Ji Yuan collapsed onto the table. He thought the eerie and terrifying feeling was gone from the well. At last, he could sleep peacefully. The next day, Ji Yuan slept until the afternoon. He looked at the well in the courtyard. He still felt uneasy. He thought to himself, I should go outside to fetch water. Ji Yuan arrived at the public well. He overheard a conversation. They were talking about hearing a terrifying scream last night. He calmly continued to draw water. The 2 girls by the side saw Ji Yuan, and wondered who he was. He looked so handsome. Ji Yuan was overjoyed in his heart, and didn't notice the puddle by his feet. He slipped and fell to the ground. It made people nearby burst into laughter. He really is a refined gentleman. Ji Yuan thought to himself, I've made a fool of myself. A voice came. Sir, let me help you. A boy who looked to be around 11 or 12 years old, dark-skinned but with refined features, stood before Ji Yuan. I can actually see his appearance clearly. Everything I can see is extraordinary. Little one, what's your name? How old are you? My name is Yin Qing. I'm already 12. Saying that, he pulled Ji Yuan up. Then, thank you. They then arrived at the Juan courtyard. Yin Qing looked terrified. Sir, you live here? Ji Yuan replied, yes. Won't you help me carry the water in? Yin Qing said his parents wouldn't let him come here. Ji Yuan thought, the neighbors don't know. The evil thing has been eliminated. Then just leave it at the door. From now on, call me Mr. Ji. Watching Yin Qing leave, Ji Yuan waved goodbye. Suddenly, the city god's parade arrived to pay a visit. Ji Yuan asked, what brings you to me? The parade hurriedly said, Lord City God, please come to the City God Temple for a talk. The mysterious and unpredictable immortal master, the envoy of the Sun God, arrives to extend an invitation. Ji Yuan asks them to wait a moment. I'll put the water in first. Then, I'll go with the Sun God to the City God Temple. Ji Yuan thought to himself, this attitude is too polite. I'm not an important figure. He noticed the young Yin Qing standing nearby. Ji Yuan smiled and greeted him. Xiao Yin Qing watched Ji Yuan leave. He thought, that's terrifying. He was walking and talking to the air. Was he chatting with a ghost? Then he turned and ran. He ran straight home. He told his parents about a person talking to a ghost. His mother quickly stopped him, saying he was talking nonsense. His father, Yin Zhaoxian, looked serious. He asked, how do you know that? Yin Qing quickly described what had just happened. He asked, Father, do you think it could be the ghost in the courtyard? Could it have come out with the Grandmaster? Yin Zhaoxian seems deep in thought. He remains silent. His wife quickly warns Yin Qing, don't talk about this outside. Then she suggests taking Yin Qing to the City God Temple to offer incense. Yin Zhaoxian agrees, saying they'll go after dinner. The scene shifts to the City God Temple. Ji Yuan and Mu Xuanyo have already arrived. The old city god nodded. He motioned for his subordinates to step back. Ji Yuan thought to himself, I didn't expect he would appear directly in the form of an elderly mortal. The city god cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Mr. Ji, for your assistance. Ji Yuan hurriedly returned the gesture. Fortuitous encounters aren't a big deal. The two of them arrived at a tea house. The waiter brought over some pastries. Ji Yuan and the city god both thanked him at the same time. This left the waiter looking quite puzzled. These two are really polite. Ji Yuan picked up a pastry and took a bite. He invited the city god to have some as well. The city god laughed, I don't have a physical body. Mortals shouldn't eat too much grain. I wonder, Mr. Ji, where you come from? Ji Yuan thought, I definitely can't talk about my past life. So he replied, that's an inconvenient question to answer. However, I, Ji, will be staying here temporarily. The city god said it was fine. He then spoke of the monster's origins. It turned out to be a surge of evil earth energy causing trouble. He personally led his subordinates to suppress it. Unexpectedly, the spirit was extremely cunning. In the end, they both suffered heavy losses. He exerted all his strength to seal the spirit in the well of the Juan Pavilion, and used a formation to lock it in. I was thinking of waiting until his injuries healed before removing it. From then on, they told the people in the county in the form of dreams that the house was unsafe. Then they thanked Ji Yuan again for helping them eliminate this great threat. Ji Yuan then learned the truth of the matter. It's far more dangerous than what I saw that night. I won't get involved in such things again. After listening to the city god's story, Ji Yuan said, It seems I'm the last unlucky one at the quiet pavilion. The city god smiled. It's the evil being that's unlucky to have met you, sir. Ji Yuan bowed to the city god. There are many things I would like to ask Mr. Ji, but I know that you speak freely without reservation. Ji Yuan asked, Do you have any understanding of the methods of cultivation for human beings in this world? The city god replied, I practice the way of the incense and golden body. I am not familiar with the methods of chi cultivation and true cultivation. However, I do have some knowledge of martial arts books from mortals. Ji Yuan was slightly disappointed. There's no cultivation method. Who would have thought the city god would suddenly arrive? There is still some basic chi guiding method, though, but it's too superficial. It probably won't be useful to you, sir. Ji Yuan was overjoyed. If it's convenient for you, city god, may I borrow it? I'd like to take a look at the martial arts of mortals. The city god graciously expressed that he would have someone deliver the books to the gentleman's home. Ji Yuan had one less worry now. He cupped his hands and thanked the city god. Then he asked, What cultivation immortals' residences are there nowadays? Famous mountains and large lakes. The city god was taken aback. He doesn't even know such a common problem. Could it be that he's not really some great master? But he still spoke. As for how he accepts disciples, I really don't know. Ji Yuan blurted out, What about the heavenly court? The city god thought, It sounds like a big deal. He replied, I don't know which immortal abode sir is referring to. There's no heaven here. Ji Yuan returns to, This is a powerful immortal mansion I've heard of before. The city god suddenly realizes, I see now. It must be extraordinary. Ji Yuan then asks, Where exactly are we now? Which dynasty? How many dynasties has it gone through? The city god is completely numb. It's one thing not to understand cultivation, but not even knowing the basic common sense of the mortal world. But after talking with him, his knowledge and demeanor are anything but ordinary. Suddenly, he remembered something he had seen when he was an official in his past life. A fairy tale. The gist is that there's a remarkable person who can sleep for 1,000 years. After waking up, his reaction is similar to Ji Yuan's now. Could it be? Looking at the city god who is dazed and silent, Ji Yuan calls out several times. Finally, the city god snaps out of it. His tone becomes respectful, Mr. Ji. Please listen to what I have to say. The current dynasty is the Great Zhen. It has lasted for 200 years. Before that was the Great Zhou. Ji Yuan seemed to be deep in thought. This was completely different from the history he knew. Soon, both the host and the guest were in high spirits. Ji Yuan said his goodbyes and left. Let's meet again another time. It just so happened that Yin Qing and his father, who were here to burn incense, also arrived. Yin Qing pointed to Ji Yuan, who was bidding farewell to the city god. He said it was that gentleman. Yin Zhaoxian fell into thought. Both of these men have extraordinary bearing, but I've never seen them in Ning'an County before. As the saying goes, wake up laughing and go play. Unknowingly, the dream lasts for 1,000 years. Watching Ji Yuan leave, Yin Zhaoxian motioned for Yin Qing to go to the temple and offer incense. They followed behind the old man. Yin Zhaoxian thought to himself, Who is this old man? He's seen all the prominent figures in the county. Could he be from another town? He thought of walking through the corridor and arriving at the main hall to offer incense. but it was empty inside. He clearly saw the old man enter first. Why is he gone? Yin Qing also said he saw him enter. After the father and son finished offering incense, they were about to leave. Suddenly, Yin Qing shouted, "Father, the statue of the city god. He looks just like that old man from earlier." Yin Zhaoxian was stunned. It really feels exactly the same. This Ji Sir is really quite baffling. Then I'll visit in person. The next day, Ji Yuan was lying in the courtyard. Everything in this world is great, except there's no internet and no phone. So bored. What to do to kill time? That's right, let's play chess. And the chess pieces that appeared because of Lu Shanjun before, have now turned black. The original chess pieces are faintly visible, hard to distinguish black and white. But now it's clearly a black piece, and the feel of these black pieces is becoming more and more substantial. Could they really descend onto the board? But why is this change happening? Is it related? As Ji Yuan became more and more immersed, a wind began to rise in the small courtyard. The wind circled Ji Yuan without dispersing. Streams of green spiritual energy gathered from all directions, gathering at Ji Yuan's fingertips. Besides the center, there's also a small black spot. A large mass of Qingling energy has already gathered. It's reached its point. Ji Yuan is starting to struggle. His arms feel as heavy as if he's lifting a heavy barbell. Let's dissipate some of it first. I'll absorb it again when it's thinner, until it dissipates to only 13 units. Ji Yuan just had the thought to receive it. A feeling like an electric shock surged through him. The Qingling energy flowed in. It was an extremely painful feeling. Ji Yuan endured it with great effort. He maintained his mind following the energy's movement, guiding the spiritual energy to circulate throughout his body. Finally, it's over. Ji Yuan collapsed onto the ground. Fortunately, most of the spiritual energy dissipated. Otherwise, it would have been disastrous. "Mr. Ji, the books have been delivered." Ji Yuan said, "Please come in. I'm a bit tired, so I won't open the door." The Yin officers passed through the wall and entered the courtyard. They said the books inside are the ones Mr. Ji requested. Several big boxes. So many. Looking at the several big boxes of books, Ji Yuan asked the Yinsha to carry them to the room. Watching the books and boxes pass through the wall with the Yinsha and enter the room, Ji Yuan thought to himself, these books must have a physical form, right? Then he heard a thud. The box hit the ground. Only then did Ji Yuan feel relieved. It's truly a marvelous transportation spell. The Yin messengers bid their farewells and left. Ji Yuan eagerly opened the box. Inside were rolls of bamboo slips. The characters on them were engraved, making it easier for Ji Yuan to read. He sat under the jujube tree in the yard, holding the bamboo slips, and began reading the content on the slips. Yin Yang and the 5 elements. All draw upon the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Purify and refine the body to cultivate immortality. This breath control technique is just a basic method. To an ordinary person, it would seem like a divine book. You should have understood most of it by now. Give it a try. The vast world outside, and the small world within. Comprehending the vastness of heaven and earth. Mastering the great Tao of the universe. Secret method, the transformation of heaven and earth. Since the world before me has changed, transformed into a scene composed of vast amounts of spiritual energy. Although the quantity isn't as much as what the chess pieces drew, but it's extremely gentle. This must be the correct way to absorb spiritual energy. Let's look at something else. Essentials of spellcasting. Illusionary techniques, small fire control techniques in the fire element. Small water control techniques and water avoidance techniques in the water element. Although they're just basic techniques, they're enough to glimpse the wonders of this world. Truly amazing. What else is there? Ji Yuan rummaged through his belongings. He found 2 martial arts manuals. They were the Iron Punishment Battle Manual and the Eagle Claw Hand. Both of these techniques were created by skilled officials. The moves are fierce and easy to learn, belonging to mid to high-level martial arts. Once I finish reading the cultivation books, I'll give them a try. It wouldn't hurt to have more ways to protect myself. The next morning, the sounds of roosters crowing rose and fell. Ji Yuan, who had been reading, realized that a whole night had passed. He turned to look at the jujube tree. This tree is so big, and it's harvest season. It must be laden with fruit. Then, he stood up, and gently stroked the jujube tree, saying, "Having you keep me company while reading all night, I don't feel lonely anymore." In the following half-month, Ji Yuan lived a life of utter immersion. Whenever his body could withstand the spiritual energy, he would gather the spiritual energy using chess pieces, then use the heaven and earth transformation, to guide the chi. Afterward, practice the 2 martial arts manuals. In his spare time, he would study the miraculous meridians and chess manual. Other than going out for meals at regular times each day, Ji Yuan lived an even more reclusive life than in his previous life, outside the door. On this day, Ji Yuan adjusted his breath, standing as still as a pine tree. His whole body was steadily rooted like a branch. After practicing lightness kung fu for so long, he has finally achieved this level of skill. He lightly tapped his toes, and leaped gracefully downward. He landed steadily on the ground, striking a cool pose. Ji Yuan thought to himself, with my intelligence and the support of spiritual energy, cultivation is indeed exceptionally fast. Ji Yuan went out without eating. He left the alley. He arrived at the bustling street. As usual, he walked to his regular son's noodle stall. He told the owner, "I'll have noodles." The owner hurriedly greeted Ji Yuan to sit down. Ji Yuan said, "The usual, please." Bowl of braised noodles. Yin Qing suddenly spotted Ji Yuan not far away. She said to Yin Zhaoxian, "Father, it's Mr. Ji." Yin Zhaoxian turned around to look. It had already been half a month. Mr. Ji's complexion was rosy. He didn't look like someone who had been harmed at all. Then he suddenly turned around. He pulled Xiao Yin Qing and walked towards the counter. Then he said to the boss, "Master Son, 2 bowls of braised noodles, please." The father and son sat at the next table, watching Ji Yuan drink tea. Yin Zhaoxian coughed twice, and pretended to run into him, saying, "Auntie, you must be Mr. Ji, right? I hear a refined scholar has arrived. I've long wished to pay my respects." Xiao Yinqing blushed crimson. Father's acting is so awkward. Fire. Ji Yuan bowed in greeting. I've long heard that Master Yin is erudite. I was wondering why they suddenly turned around. So it was a chance encounter they planned with me. Ji Yuan then praised Xiao Yinqing for her intelligence and grace. He said he still remembered the kindness of that pail of water. He invited them to join his table. Yin Zhaoxian was overjoyed. He took Yin Qing to change seats with him. As the boss brought over steaming bowls of braised noodles, Ji Yuan turned to thank the boss. Yin Zhaoxian looked puzzled. After all, this is a rigidly stratified society. Few people are polite to service staff. So he said, "Thank you," with a look of discomfort on his face. Boss' son was sweating profusely. He was even more uncomfortable. Ji Yuan thought to himself, a scholar like Master Yin wouldn't look down on the boss, though, but he still considers himself superior. But I thanked him. He has to follow suit, although reluctantly. This world has strict hierarchies. Being cultured and polite depends on who you're dealing with. The teacher should do even better. His student might one day become the pillar of the nation. After finishing the noodles, Ji Yuan called for the bill. Yin Zhaoxian quickly insisted that he would pay for this meal. Ji Yuan didn't refuse. Before leaving, he gave Master Yin a parting remark. Common folk and travelers are the mirrors of the state. A teacher must be revered for their virtue and accomplishments, to set an example for others. Yin Zhaoxian stood there in a daze for quite a while, unable to regain his composure. He only snapped back to reality when Xiao Yinqing asked a question. He let out a deep sigh. He said, "Let's go home." The next morning, the Yin father and son arrived at the gate of the small courtyard. Yin Zhaoxian felt that the place, which had once been gloomy, now had a fresh and natural feeling. He was about to knock on the door. Ji Yuan's voice has arrived, "Come in." The gate isn't locked. As the saying goes, a chance encounter in the busy streets. A single word can awaken the one who reads. Ji Yuan smiled and said, "Yin Fuzi, if you're coming, just come. You don't need to bring anything." Yin Zhaoxian expressed that since it's his first visit, he couldn't be lacking in proper manners. "Moreover, your words yesterday benefited me greatly. Please accept this, a bamboo slip." "What is this, sir?" "I do not mind, really. My eyes are limited. I cannot read ordinary books. I heard that the master is going to teach at the school in the county. I wonder how the preparations are going." Master Yin humbly expressed that it was just everyone's kind attention. The classes will begin in 2 days. Then, with a puzzled expression, he asked Master Ji, "There is a well in your yard. Why do you still go outside to fetch water?" Master Ji did not hide the truth. "They say this well was once contaminated with something unclean, so it can't be used for drinking." Yin Zhaoxian also thought of something, and instinctively shifted his body, slightly distancing himself from the well. He then noticed the game record on the table, and started a conversation about Go. He and Ji Yuan chatted casually in the courtyard. The more he talked with Yin Zhaoxian, the more he felt that Ji Yuan was unfathomable. He knew everything about astronomy and geography. His views were unique and insightful. His opinions were truly unheard of, although he seemed to know everything. It was also strange. It wasn't until the afternoon that father and son finally left. Ji Yuan was also very satisfied. Chatting with someone learned but not rigid is so enjoyable. He looks at the flower carving on the stone table. Ji Yuan removes the lid and smells it. He directly uses a small water-controlling technique. The wine gathers into a thread, flying into his mouth. Not bad. This spell is already considered basic. Nightfall. Two groups of martial artists are fiercely fighting. In a roll and leap. One of them shouts, "Hand over the sword intent." The man in the conical hat looks defiant, impossible. The opponent swiftly throws a hidden weapon. The man in the conical hat is caught off guard. My shoulder's injured. He channeled his inner energy and swung his sword wildly. He cut down a large number of branches. He seized the opportunity and fled forward with all his might. He thought that stealing the sword intent post would be a piece of cake. He never expected it to be so dangerous. The pursuers were close behind. The sword intent manual was left behind by the sword immortals Wakwantu before his death. It contains his sword techniques and sword intent. How dare you steal it? Hand it over. On the other side, Lu Shanjun let out a loud roar. His cultivation had reached a new realization. In just a few years, he might be able to transform. He suddenly heard a rustling sound. Was someone approaching? The two groups of martial artists were still fleeing and chasing. The injured man gritted his teeth. He pulled out the sword intent letter from his bosom. He quickly placed it on a rock. He shouted, "Isn't this what you're after? If you push me too far, I'll tear this damn thing up." The pursuers quickly stopped. They found themselves in a stalemate. Just as the man in the straw hat was caught between a rock and a hard place, a sudden gust of wind swept by. The thing in his hand flew away. Everyone was startled. The pursuers leaped up. And the man in the straw hat seized the opportunity to escape. Just as the pursuers were about to grab the post, a strange gust of wind blew. The post suddenly shot up, and was directly swept into the sky. The pursuers looked unwilling, failed at the last moment. Keep searching. We must find the post. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lu Shanjun lay lazily at the entrance of the cave. The post was right beside his claws. Making a wedding gown for others, Lu Shanjun gently flicked the calligraphy with his claws. Beautiful characters. It's a pity that although the writing carries a sharp intent, it lacks any spirit. Lu Shanjun thought to himself, such good characters. How about this? A moment later, a red fox was pinned under Lu Shanjun's paw. I know you've already gained spiritual intelligence. I've seen the expert from the Mountain God Temple, the one who chants scriptures at the Outer Peak Mountain God Temple. The fox dared not resist and nodded slightly. Good to know. Do something for me. With that, he opened his mouth and spat out the scroll of sword intent. There's my hair on it. The master should recognize it, but you mustn't disturb the master's seclusion. Understand? The red fox only dared to respond weakly. Lu Shanjun showed a satisfied expression. Go. This is also a stroke of luck for you. If you dare to lose the calligraphy, I'll skin you alive. Lu Shanjun thought to himself. Giving him a painting, that can't be considered cliché. If the gentleman really likes it, and I compliment it a few times, just thinking about it makes me happy. Thinking this, he hummed a little tune. He walked back with happy strides. The next morning, Ji Yuan went out to eat as usual, and arrived at the bustling street market. Suddenly, Ji Yuan heard a commotion from the crowd. It was that red fox. It was being attacked by two dogs. Ji Yuan frowned. He activated his spiritual energy. Using martial arts and body movement, he directly rushed to the front. At this moment, a big man hit the yellow dog with a stick. The yellow dog, in pain, let go of the fox. The big man was delighted, thinking, this fox is mine. But to his surprise, the fox, on the brink of death, immediately leapt up. It darted out of the crowd. Was the fox pretending? How cunning. Just as the two yellow dogs pounced again, the little fox was heavily injured and fell to the ground. Suddenly, a figure in a long robe appeared in front of the yellow dogs. The red fox was stunned in place. Then it quickly reacted. Immediately, it raised its front limbs, continuously waving in greeting. The crowd marveled in surprise. Seems like a friend of Master Yin. Ji Yuan recognized Lu Shanjuan's tiger fur. So this fox is specifically looking for me, yet it's injured like this. So he clasped his hands and said to the big man, could you let me have this fox? I'll offer 100 cash. The big man replied, if Mr. Ji wants it, then take it. 101 is just 101. Ji Yuan thanked him. He picked up the little fox and said to the two yellow dogs, how about you two leave as well? To his surprise, the few big yellow dogs hesitated for a moment, then turned and walked away. The onlookers were so shocked that they couldn't say a word. Ji Yuan hurriedly said, let's break it up. Before everyone could react, he used his light kung fu to disappear into a side alley, leaving behind a group of puzzled people. This wound is too serious. We need to go to the medical clinic immediately. Ji Yuan walked while infusing the fox with spiritual energy. Time is pressing. He didn't care anymore. He used his light kung fu to rush on the road, leaving behind a trail of afterimages. He arrived at the medical clinic. He hurriedly asked the doctor to take a look. The doctor said he had never treated animals before. Ji Yuan hurriedly said that it was also a life. A doctor's heart is full of compassion. Please try your best to save it. The doctor didn't say a word, and took Ji Yuan into the room for treatment. As the saying goes, a red fox's gift brings calamity, but a life not meant to end will turn to safety. After treatment, the little fox was out of danger. In addition, Ji Yuan used spiritual energy to nurture it, so it actually benefited from the misfortune. His cultivation has greatly advanced. The laws of fate in this world are truly wondrous. Fortune and misfortune are interconnected. Ji Yuan opened the calligraphy album sent by Lord Lu Shan. He blurted out, "Beautiful handwriting. Wait, this can't exactly be called handwriting. It's more like a moving sword technique. Although this calligraphy does not possess spiritual energy, and was not written by an immortal cultivator, the sword techniques recorded within have actually formed a sword intent, containing supreme wisdom and willpower." The martial artist who wrote this calligraphy must have been an extraordinary genius. I wonder if they are still around. Ji Yuan waved his hand. The branch on the ground flew into my hand. In the previous life, there were sayings about calligraphy being like swordsmanship. At last, I've witnessed it. Using a twig as a sword. Ji Yuan's elegant swordplay with wine. The wind in the small courtyard swirls freely. Jujube blossoms circle around, pulled by the sword's momentum. The red fox, who was eating, stared in a daze. Ji Yuan waved his sleeve and flicked his sword. The intent of the sword gathered the jujube flowers into a green dragon. It shot out of the small courtyard. In the end, it dissipated. Pedestrians passing by smelled the fragrance and turned their heads. They saw a gentle breeze sending flowers down like rain. Ji Yuan calmed his breath and sheathed his sword. Since the origin of the calligraphy sheet is unknown, let's call that last move Soaring Dragon. From then on, the little fox stayed in the courtyard. Ji Yuan fed it fish and meat every day. He also occasionally used spiritual energy to condition its body. Yin Qing and her father also frequently visited the courtyard. She became very familiar with the little fox. A week later, the red fox leaped onto the roof, looking towards the direction of the mountains. Ji Yuan also appeared on the roof. You want to go back, don't you? Since your injuries are completely healed, if you feel restricted here, then I will send you home tomorrow. The next day, Ji Yuan called Xiao Yinqing to accompany him to send the red fox back to the mountain. Arriving at the foot of the mountain, Ji Yuan said, "If you want to play, go ahead." So, Xiao Yinqing and the red fox completely let loose, playing and fooling around by the river, splashing water at each other. A little fish leapt out of the water. Xiao Yinqing kept missing. Unexpectedly, the little fox directly bit it. He looked at him smugly. The sun was about to set. The two humans and the fox, tired from playing, sat by the river, overjoyed. Finally, they reached the mountain. Ji Yuan said, "Let's stop here. Little red fox, may we meet again." Xiao Yinqing also shouted her farewells. "Don't forget about me." "Yes, and..." The little fox whimpered twice. Its eyes were full of reluctance. Ji Yuan said, "Let's go." He pulled Xiao Yinqing and turned to leave. They had walked about 10 steps. Ji Yuan suddenly felt a psychic connection. He turned to look at the little fox, which remained motionless. "Since we've met, I'll give you another gift. Embark on the path of cultivation. You can lack anything, but you can't lack a name." Ji Yuan looked at the clouds in the sky. "From now on, you'll be called Hu Yun." The red fox's eyes lit up. It bowed continuously to Ji Yuan. Xiao Yinqing was dumbfounded. The rumors are true. Ji Yuan pulled Yinqing back. Turning around, he felt another electric shock in his sleeve. A phantom chess piece flashed past his fingertips. As the saying goes, even in desperate straits, one should not give up. Good fortune follows those who persevere. Ji Yuan carried the tired little Yinqing back. The safety is entrusted to Yin Zhaoxian. At this moment, the county magistrate and the head of the Wei family happened to step out. They saw Ji Yuan and Yin Zhaoxian. The county magistrate introduced Ji Yuan to Wei Wuwei. "I heard he made the red fox beg for help in fear, and made the vicious dog retreat on its own." The head of the Wei family looked astonished. This person is no ordinary mortal. Then, they prepared to board the carriage and leave. At that moment, Ji Yuan suddenly had a sense of awareness. There was a spiritual light in that person's chest. At this time, Ji Yuan was very eager to learn more about cultivation. That evening, he changed into a black night outfit. He thought to himself that the fat man had spiritual light emanating from him. It should be related to immortal cultivation. I should go and confirm it myself. Then I'll use light kung fu to travel quickly. In a moment, I was far away. Soon, I saw the carriage in the distance. Ji Yuan thought, thankfully it hadn't gone far. Should I go straight up and have a friendly chat, or Suddenly, I saw several dark figures running towards the carriage. Several men with knives rushed forward. With a few slashes, the carriage was completely destroyed. The guard shouted, charging forward on horseback. The leader of the bandits raised his hand and threw 3 hidden weapons. The guard couldn't dodge in time and was hit by 2. The other guards quickly followed. The head of the Wei family urged them to hurry and run. The next moment, the coachman was thrown away. A large knife was pressed against his neck. I heard your family has an heirloom blue jade. Quite extraordinary. Hand it over. The head of the Wei family hurriedly said, Hero. The jade pendant at my home is just an ordinary one. There's nothing magical about it. The Great Han threatens. You'd better think carefully before you answer. The head of the Wei family hurriedly asked, Do you want the jade or the jewelry? I'll give you both. The Great Han smirked wickedly. Only children make choices. I want everything. The head of the Wei family hurriedly explained that the blue jade wasn't on him. The man asked sinisterly, So you want to die, huh? Seeing that there was no way to hide it, the head of the Wei family helplessly took out the blue jade. Here. This is it. Ji Yuan saw this and knew it was time to take action. The big man excitedly reached for the jade pendant, but unexpectedly, Wei Wuwei suddenly sprang into action. 3 silver needles shot out, piercing the big man's chest. And that's not all. Wei Wuwei shifted his body. Sun quickly stepped forward. He struck the big man with a powerful palm. The big man was sent flying 2 yards away. He crashed to the ground. At this moment, Wei Wuwei shed his previous timidity. While others were momentarily stunned, he charged forward. There were 2 loud bangs. 2 more people were sent flying. Ran into a big tree. Ji Yuan thought to himself, Is this person pretending to be a weak fool? The leading man struggled to sit up. You actually know martial arts. And you poisoned me. Wei Wuwei looked pleased with himself. Surprised? I just love seeing that expression on your face. Then he began to interrogate the burly man, asking how he knew about the ancestral jade pendant. Suddenly, there was a sharp whooshing sound. Wei Wuwei quickly dodged. A masked figure in black appeared. Wei Wuwei thought, Such lightness skill. I'm afraid it's going to be tough to deal with. The masked person doesn't waste words. He strikes with a chilling force. He flicks his hand toward him. The speed is just too fast. Wei Wuwei can't dodge in time. He is instantly injured. By the time he reacts, the opponent's finger is already right in front of my face. It's over. My life is forfeit. As they say, the world is full of danger and treachery. When one's skills fall short, disaster strikes. In the blink of an eye, Ji Yuan suddenly appeared to block it. In an instant, Ji Yuan launched over a dozen attacks on the opponent. The masked man barely managed to parry with both hands. In just a few breaths, my arms went numb, and my protective chi was shattered. While he was still stunned, Ji Yuan appeared behind him like a ghost, and directly dislocated his left arm. Having witnessed the dangers of the Jianghu, for safety's sake, Ji Yuan dislocated the masked man's other arm as well. Then he calmly retreated. The masked man's face was full of apprehension. Iron punishment technique? Sir, which high official are you from? Ji Yuan thought. As expected. I haven't been exposed. The man in black saw that he couldn't win in a fight. He tried to bribe Ji Yuan with wealth. Seeing that Ji Yuan remained silent, he directly played his trump card. The opportunity to become an immortal. Do you want it? Ji Yuan manipulated his spiritual energy, and changed the tone of his voice to, Are you trying to fool me with this nonsense? The masked man said, The path of immortality is elusive, but there are clues to follow. The jade pendant in Wei Wuwei's hand has an extraordinary origin. Ji Yuan turned and asked the head of the Wei family, Why did they try to steal your jade? By this time, Wei Wuwei dared not hide the truth. He said that his ancestors had once saved a crane. Later, the crane gave this jade pendant as a token of gratitude. It has been passed down through generations, but it is only a legend. Ji Yuan remained silent. The man in black quickly responded, There are many miraculous things in this world. 5 years ago, in Chunmu River, he encountered a giant black-backed turtle. This giant turtle could speak. It even asked him for a reward. What did it ask for? It coaxed him into speaking. Keep going. The turtle told me there were 3 fateful encounters. One is the sword intent scroll, hidden in Dingyuan Manor. The second is the Wei family's heirloom blue jade. The third is in Tongzhou, thousands of miles away. As long as you let me go, I will tell you the method to seek the immortal's destiny. The head of the Wei family panicked. He quickly said, Sir, you mustn't trust his words. I am willing to give you this jade pendant. Please, don't go around him. He thought, if I don't give it now, my life will be in danger. Ji Yuan thought, given for free. It really is tempting. This masked man exudes a strong aura. He's definitely no good guy. Although Wei Wuwei isn't exactly a saint either. But if it comes to forcing out the secret of the immortal fate and then silencing him, that's not my intention. Does cultivating immortality require such unscrupulous methods? Besides, I already have the sword intent attached. Then he took the blue jade from the Wei family head. This is a treasure that can lead one onto the immortal path. Are you sincerely trying to repay me? Or are you just afraid I'll lay a hand on you? Wei Wuwei could only say reluctantly. The jade pendant is truly given to you with sincerity, my lord. How can immortals enjoy wealth and luxury freely? Ji Yuan heard this and laughed heartily. Everyone present was stunned. He casually tossed the jade pendant back to Wei's head. He said he was just passing by. Then he turned his body and knocked out the two robbers. Master Wei, please hand the criminals over to the authorities. Afterward, he disappeared in a few quick movements. Only Master Wei was left, standing dazed in place. He thought to himself, it seems like you all ended up in my hands. He. As the saying goes, all kinds of reactions before the celestial fate. My heart is at peace, my original intention unchanged. Ji Yuan quickly returned home. He opened the sword intent scroll and examined it carefully. He thought to himself, I've looked at this scroll countless times already. Should I burn it or soak it in water? As his fingers moved, he realized it was just ordinary rice paper. It couldn't withstand much handling. With my eyesight, I can't see ordinary characters clearly at all. The sword intent of the sword intent post is profound, so I can make it out. He reached out and gestured at the sword move, wondering where the mystery lies. Suddenly, Ji Yuan discovered that this was actually a map. Of course. If it weren't for my unmatched talent and fortune, this secret would probably be hard to uncover. As expected of left madman, I wonder what kind of opportunity he'll have after taking the masked man's clear shadow sword. I'm really looking forward to it. Really exciting. The next day, the head of the Wei family returned to the city and inquired about Ji Yuan's residence. He then came to the door. At this moment, Ji Yuan was playing chess with Yin Zhaoxian. Ji Yuan said there was a visitor outside. At the same time, a knock on the door was heard. Little Yin Qing ran to open the door. The head of the Wei family entered the yard carrying something. He explained his purpose to Ji Yuan. He had heard about the fox paying respects to Ji Yuan. He still had such questions in his mind. He wanted to seek help. Xiao Yin Qing said that Mr. Ji is amazing. He had personally seen the little fox scare by. Master Wei felt even more at ease. Mr. Ji, are there really demons and monsters in this world? Is there really a way to become an immortal? Ji Yuan had a calm expression. Yes. Yin Zhaoxian was stunned. Wei Wuwei took out his ancestral jade pendant and wanted Ji Yuan to examine it, to see what secrets it held. Ji Yuan thought, I didn't examine it carefully last night, and now it's delivered right to me. What a coincidence. Ji Yuan slowly infused a trace of spiritual energy into the blue jade. A faint light began to shine through. This light was clear enough for Yin Zhaoxian and the others to see. Wei Wuwei even held his breath. The jade pendant displayed 4 small characters glowing with spiritual light. Yuhua's sacred realm. So it's Yuhua Mountain. Wei Wuwei's face was filled with excitement. What my Wei family has passed down through generations is actually true. A celestial Dao opportunity. Ji Yuan thought to himself, there's definitely something to this. There's a faint magnetic force here directed towards Wei Wuwei. It seems that even if I take this blue jade, it's useless. Then I'll return the blue jade to the Wei family head. Wei Wuwei hurriedly bowed, Master Ji. I don't know how I should go about seeking this celestial opportunity. Ji Yuan thought, I want to know too. I only heard about this jade mountain from the city god. Then he spoke calmly, I heard that in the northern part of Jizhou. Ji has said all he can. Mr. Wei, please take care of yourself. That's enough. Wei Wuwei bowed. He took out an item. It's a token from the Wei family. It will be useful someday. The Wei family will do their utmost. Then he got up and took his leave. Tao Yuan opened the pastries sent by the head of the Wei family. He shared them with everyone. Then he stood up and said to Yin Zhao, I'm preparing to go on a long journey. Yin Zhaoxian looked surprised. Mr. Ji, when are you planning to leave? Ji Yuan replied, if it's soon, tomorrow. If it's later, maybe in 3 days. The Yin father and son looked reluctant. Yin Zhaoxian said, please let us know before you leave. We will see you off. Ji Yuan clasped his fists in thanks. He looked up at the jujube tree. It seems we won't be able to eat the jujubes this year. When the time comes, you should pick them and share them with the neighbors. The next morning, many of the jujube tree's leaves were withered and yellow, but the branches were already laden with fruit. As the saying goes, suddenly, an autumn wind blows. The garden's abundant harvest is picked by others. Ji Yuan was greatly pleased beyond expectations. He thanked the jujube tree. He didn't know how long he would be away this time. He decided to write a letter to the Yin family. In the letter, he praised Master Yin's unparalleled virtue. He was truly worthy of the title of master. As for him, he left without saying a word. I look forward to Master Yin becoming a great scholar of his generation, to enlighten all the people under heaven. After reading Ji Yuan's letter, Yin Zhaoxian felt a slight tingling on his scalp. Countless ambitions brewed within his heart. At the same time, a phantom image of a chess piece flashed in Ji Yuan's hand. Ji Yuan raised his hand in confusion. He wondered, could it be Master Yin? Did the letter I wrote have an impact on him? So he shouted loudly, "Goodbye, my friend." On the other side, the Yin father and son went to help Ji Yuan clean the yard. Then they stared blankly at the heavily fruit-laden jujube tree, following Ji Yuan's instructions. Yin Zhaoxian distributed the jujubes to the neighbors. Master Sun at the snack stand looked puzzled. Isn't it too early for this season? The dates are already ripe. One bite. And these dates are incredibly delicious. In just half a day, the entire county knew that Mr. Ji's date tree had ripened early, and that he was sharing them with everyone. At this moment, Ji Yuan was on his way to Chunhui Mansion, seeking the immortal destiny of the Sword Intent Scroll. He took out the map given to him by the city god before he left, and thought that it would take some time to get there. He could first go to Chunmu River and see if he could find that giant turtle. So he activated his lightness skill. In an instant, he overtook the carriage ahead. By nightfall, Ji Yuan passed by a village. An elderly man asked, "Who are you? What brings you here?" Ji Yuan said he was just passing through. The old man noticed Ji Yuan's grayish-white eyes, and asked, "Sir, what about your eyes?" Ji Yuan said his eyesight wasn't good. "Walking at night is inconvenient. Could I stay for the night?" The old man leaned closer to take a look. This person's pupils were white. "And he has a shadow. Then come with us." After opening the door, the old man stepped forward and said, "Let me help you inside." Ji Yuan understood immediately. Is he checking if I have a fever? Then, two strong men slammed the gate shut. Why does the atmosphere feel so strange? He was then led into a room. "Tonight, sir, you'll make do here." Saying this, the old man poured a cup of tea. "I just made a fool of myself in front of you. There are too many strange things these days. One has to be extra cautious." Ji Yuan smiled and said it was no trouble. But then, the old man suddenly asked him, "Are you a ghost?" Ji Yuan spit out the tea he was drinking. "Old man, don't joke like that." The old man apologized. He said there's a snake woman causing trouble here. Ji Yuan thought to himself, a snake woman? Could it be a monster? The old man continued explaining. It's said to be a giant snake with a human head and a snake body. It likes to lure young men and eat them. Ji Yuan quickly said, "Old man, don't scare me. I thought, anyone who can speak must have some real skills. Ordinary people can't defend against this at all." The old man solemnly assured him, "This has already reached Suiyuan County. How could I be lying to you?" Ji Yuan thought, this is bad. He got too carried away with his lightness skill while traveling. I underestimated my speed. I ended up running through 2 counties. 54 kilometers, starting to navigate, but there's no GPS here. The car's causing trouble. 15 minutes. As they say, when you're out and about, remember. A car causing trouble is risky. It was deep into the night. Suddenly, loud dog barking came from outside. Ji Yuan thought to himself, that dog has a spiritual sense. Is there really a monster here? By the river outside the village, a long black mark slid across the ground. It raised its body and gazed towards the direction of the village, exposing its rough body and the white scales on its abdomen. When the first rooster crowed, that is, around 3 a.m., a big man got up and went out. He went straight to the river to relieve himself. Meanwhile, Ji Yuan also woke up. He put on his clothes. He activated a small fire control technique. He reached out and waved his sleeve. The flame on the oil lamp was snuffed out and tucked into the sleeve. I really want to see what the hell this is. The man finished his business. Suddenly, he heard a splash from the river. Maybe it's just fish making bubbles. Then a woman's voice came. Ugh, how dirty. The man looked in the direction of the sound. A naked woman is hiding by the shore. The big man quickly covers his eyes with his hands. Miss, don't take offense. I didn't know you were bathing here. He says this out loud, but his heart is already stirred. The woman shouts, why are you still standing there? Hurry up. I'm getting up. The big guy took a quick glance. I'll just look away. Running to the side, still sneaking a glance behind, suddenly stopped in his tracks. All the dogs in the village ran over, barking loudly toward the riverbank. Then there was a loud cry. The man nervously and excitedly turned around. Miss, what's wrong? The woman said, I was startled by a dog as soon as I landed. I tripped. I sprained my ankle. Young master, could you help me up? Is this appropriate? The man said this while speaking, but But the body was very honest. He reached out and grabbed the woman's little hand. Suddenly, a huge force came. The man was pulled into the water. But he still had a look of joy on his face. He was pressed very close to the woman in the water. Ji Yuan rushed along the rooftops of the village, facing the wind. He ran in the direction where the dog barking was the most intense. He rushed to the riverbank. From a distance, he saw a large snake coiling around a person. Near the snake's head, there was a faint shadow of a woman. A man was staring at the snake's head with an obsessed expression. Ji Yuan channeled the surging spiritual energy within him. He shouted loudly, "You vile creature! How dare you harm others!" His shout instantly had the grandeur of a thunderous roar. Not only the river's waves rolled, the villagers who came running at the sound were so scared they covered their ears. The giant snake in the river also shuddered violently. A demonic aura clearly rose from the snake's body, but it wasn't strong. Ji Yuan thought, thankfully, it hasn't matured yet. A scream rang out, "Monster!" The giant snake was startled again. Instinctively, it whipped its tail. Instead, it flung the man ashore. The man scrambled to his feet and ran away. The giant snake unwillingly pursued him onto the shore. Ji Yuan stood in front of it. "You dare come up here?" He reached out a hand. A branch flew into Ji Yuan's hand from not far away. He held the branch with a sword grip and began to dance it. With the dragon sweeping sword style, he swept forward with a strike. The tail of the serpent swept through the air, brushing past Ji Yuan's body. But it was only an illusion. Ji Yuan had shifted his position to behind the serpent. Using the common people's lanterns as guidance, he commanded the flames of the people, "Let's see if you can block this strike." Flames suddenly erupted on the tree branches. The sword moved at lightning speed. The sword intent was like a dragon. This move is called dragon sending fire. Endless flames quickly swept across the serpent's rear half. The serpent, in agony, dived into the river. As the saying goes, a word of lust is a knife above the head. The sword, like a roaming dragon, retreats from the serpent demon. The serpent demon sees it and leaps into the river, but the fire can't be extinguished. It directly opens its bloody maw. With one bite, it severs its still burning tail. The villagers watching are petrified. This giant snake is ruthless. This tail-cutting survival move also caught Ji Yuan off guard. He watches as the serpent demon retreats. Ji Yuan's spiritual energy is abundant. He shouted loudly, "Suiyuan County City God, patrolling day and night. Where are you? A monster has appeared here. Please appear quickly and apprehend it." Ji Yuan covered his chest, calming the excessive consumption of spiritual energy. That's all he could do. He looked at the snake's body still burning in the river. The villagers were talking among themselves. "It's the monster, the beautiful snake demon." Luckily, a skilled person passed by. A moment later, two night patrollers cupped their fists and bowed. Ji Yuan explained the situation to them. The night patrollers thanked him again. One went to report to the city god, and the other went after the monster. After hearing this, the city god waved his hand and ordered to capture the monster. They tracked down another night patrolman who was fighting with a snake demon. The city god sighed. Sure enough, he was severely injured. With a single command, his officers and subordinates rushed forward. The heavily injured serpent demon had no strength to fight back. The city god stabbed it in the head with a single sword strike. The soul reaper was ordered to extract the serpent demon's soul. The evil creature was successfully captured. On the other side, the villagers kept thanking Ji Yuan. He then took his leave. It would be troublesome if the authorities arrived. He climbed over a dirt mound. They arrived at a small grove. Under the shade of the trees, the city god of Suiyuan County and his subordinates have been waiting here for a long time. Well. They've been waiting for me here. Ji Yuan introduced himself, explaining that the previous situation was urgent, so he had no choice but to take such measures. The city god thank you for your help, sir. The snake demon has been captured. Please take a look, sir. The martial judge pulled the soul of the snake demon in front. Ji Yuan confirmed, that's it. The city god thanked him again. If you need any help in the future, don't hesitate to ask. Upon hearing this, Ji Yuan, why would I be polite? My lord, I need your help right now. I wonder if you have any immortal cultivation texts or techniques. Could I possibly take a look? Any technique will do. I don't care about losing face anymore. I'll worry about that later. The city god asked this. What does the gentleman need these for? Ji Yuan replied, for reference and study. The city god thought for a moment. He pulled out a foreign Dao transmission and a bright, clear book from his sleeve. Since you need them, I'll give them to you. Ji Yuan happily took them. You even carry these with you. I can actually read the title. This isn't an ordinary book. Let me open it and see. The pages are actually completely blank. Could it be a book without words? As spiritual energy is infused, the text gradually becomes clear. Ji Yuan smiles with delight. Many thanks to the city god for the book. The city god said that as long as you like it. With a whoosh, he led the group and left. Wasn't it quite harmonious just now? Why did they leave so quickly? Upon a closer look, the annotations in the book are so profound that they can be understood at a glance. Ordinary people are not meant to see them. Does this city god think I'm pretending to be an ordinary person to fool him? Misunderstanding. A complete misunderstanding. I can't stay here. Let's go quickly. Thinking of using my light skills to leave quickly. Sure enough, the city god was hiding nearby. Watching Ji Yuan speed away, he wondered who exactly he was. As the saying goes, Master Ji, the great immortal, helps to eliminate demons. Ignoring his dignity to seek the immortal technique, a torrential rain began to pour from the sky. Ji Yuan arrived at a cave to take shelter from the rain and rest. He thought to himself, the passerby just said this was the sleeping dragon wall, but this doesn't look like a dragon at all. There are hardly any dates left. Better eat sparingly. At this moment, Ji Yuan's ears twitched. He heard the sound of footsteps. Is anyone coming in this kind of weather? A white-robed old man, with a head full of white hair and a white beard slowly walked over. Ji Yuan thought, I can clearly see this person, and I can't even hear the rain falling on him. No ordinary person. The old man bowed to Ji Yuan. Sir, you have quite the refined taste. Ji Yuan returned the bow, but he was just resting here for a moment. Still, strolling in the rain under your pavilion is more unrestrained. He thought to himself, the sound of the dripping water and footsteps were both real. This person is definitely no ordinary person. I just wonder if he is a celestial being or a demon. The old man saw the book on esoteric teachings placed aside. He continued, this is an old miscellaneous book from many years ago. Do you mind if I sit beside you? Ji Yuan replied, please. After sitting down, the old man asked, Sir, having read this book on esoteric teachings, what are your insights? Ji Yuan pondered for a moment before answering, while this book is skillfully written, its assessment of mountain and marsh spirits is not fair. The saying goes, do not do unto others what you do not want done to yourself. This is a principle that ordinary people understand. The old man's eyes lit up. Oh. Could you elaborate, sir? Ji Yuan also decided to speak up. Although some spirits might engage in harmful actions, they shouldn't be completely condemned. For example, in the book, young Master Wang saved the cat demon. The cat demon turned into a human and married young Master Wang as a repayment. Later, a rich merchant coveted the cat demon's beauty. He caused young Master Wang's family to be ruined. The cat demon avenged young Master Wang by killing the merchant's family. Although the story briefly touches on the cruelty of human nature, it mainly emphasizes how the cat demon harms others. I deeply dislike this. There is also another story that says, hundreds of years ago, there was a prolonged drought. The people suffered immensely. Yet the writer calls it divine will. The people prayed to the dragon for rain. After enjoying the offerings, the dragon brought rain to relieve the disaster. This was clearly an act of benefiting all living beings. Unenlightened. The book contains many such prejudiced views. It's utterly ridiculous. The old man was silent for a long time. He pointed to the stone wall above and asked, Sir, do you know the origin of the sleeping dragon wall? Ji Yuan replied, I don't. The old man began to tell a story about 300 years ago. There was a Jiao dragon here who had completed his cultivation, and was preparing to ascend to become a dragon. But due to practicing for too long, and desiring to transform into a dragon, that year, the heavy rain lasted for more than half a month. As a result, the Xing mansion was flooded. Wherever it passed, living beings suffered greatly. Ji Yuan thought, even in modern times, floods are still a terrifying force. The elder continued speaking. This stone wall here is the very place where the flood dragon broke through the earth. That's why the name Wulong Wall has been passed down. Ji Yuan asked, I heard there is a celestial mansion on Yuhua Mountain in Jizhou. Did no one stop it back then? The elder smiled and said, the flood dragon stirred up the winds and waves. Naturally, it attracted the attention of immortals. But only the city god of Du Mingfu arrived. He shattered his golden body to swat the mosquito awake. He wanted him to see with his own eyes the karma he had created. Ji Yuan understood. This old man is either a flood dragon or a true dragon. The story being told is about him. Then may I ask, sir, did the Jiao dragon finally succeed in transforming into a dragon? What happened afterwards? The old man said indifferently, of course, it succeeded. In the following 300 years, he brought clouds and rain to Jizhou, resulting in good harvests and favorable weather. And he controlled the water tribes, preventing them from causing mischief. Sir, what do you think of the dragon's actions? Is it uncivilized? If the answer is unsatisfactory, that's it. As the saying goes, a dragon stirs up the wind and creates waves. Right and wrong, merit and fault, all seek evaluation. At this moment, Ji Yuan's heart is in a panic. But on the outside, he remains incredibly calm. He thinks to himself, he must be seeking affirmation. But it certainly isn't with flattery or compliments. So he spoke. I greatly admire the dragon's actions later on. But if I had encountered that dragon back then, and had the ability to do so, I would have definitely killed him. The old man frowned and squinted. A trace of self-satisfaction appeared at the corner of his mouth. What does the gentleman think? The achievements of this dragon in the next 300 years, can they make up for the mistakes of the past? Ji Yuan completely affirmed. He is that dragon. He asked in return. Then may I ask, sir, if everyone believes that the sins of the past have already been forgiven, will you continue to bring rain and blessings? Merit is merit. Fault is fault. Only by making amends. Is there no offsetting of merit and fault? What I hate is the former evil dragon. What I admire is the current true dragon. There's no conflict in that. As soon as these words were spoken, the old man, whose brow had been furrowed, was slightly startled. He suddenly burst into hearty laughter. Well said, well said. Ji Yuan let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, he managed to get through it. Hearing the voice, the old man turned his head. In a hurry, Ji Yuan grabbed a jujube from the side. The old man, try this, it's from my own yard. It's very fresh and sweet. The elder took it. Are there dates in this season? That's rare, but 2 aren't enough. Ji Yuan quickly stuffed the remaining dates into his mouth. There are only 4 in total, 1 for each of us. The elder didn't mind. 1 bite and they kept praising how good the fruit is. Though it's a little lacking in spiritual energy, the flavor is excellent. Where is your garden, sir? Could I go pick some more? Ji Yuan said. It's fine, you can, but I asked a friend to divide the dates. I don't know if there are any left. The old man asked, is your friend keeping some? Can you ask him to give me some? Ji Yuan replied, he's just a mortal. He can't keep them. There aren't any. The old man looked shocked. Just a mortal. How could he be worthy of being the master's friend? Ji Yuan gave a playful wink. I acknowledge this friend. Isn't that enough? The old man laughed heartily. Wonderful. Wonderful. Naturally, it's up to the master to decide. Then, I wondered if this old demon is qualified to be the master's friend. That depends on whether the old gentleman invites me for a drink next time. Mr. Ji, feel free to ask for whatever drink you want. Ji Yuan said he only looks at the person, not the drink. Immortal wine. Or human huadiao, I'll get drunk either way. The old man laughed heartily. He reached out and bowed. I am Jiang Yinghong of the Heavenly River. As a return gift, I am Ji Yuan. I am from Ningyan County. The old man mentioned that he still has to summon a rain. We'll meet again next time. I will definitely make sure you drink your fill. After saying this, the old man transformed into a blurry dragon-like streak of light. A sound of "ang" echoed. In a flash, he broke through the clouds and left. Ji Yuan thought to himself, if this continues, I'm afraid I'll get a heart attack before I become an immortal. As the saying goes, Ji Daoyu strikes again. The true dragon submits, chuckling. Ji Yuan arrived in town. At this moment, he was covered in dirt. It also gave off a smell. But Ji Yuan didn't mind. He went straight to the restaurant to eat. The boss mistakenly thought it was a coincidence. He had the waiter send him to a corner and give him a small dish. Ji Yuan didn't care. He sat in the corner and started ordering. The waiter panicked. Sir, we can only offer you a small dish. Ji Yuan takes out silver. The waiter's expression changes instantly. Please wait a moment, sir. Suddenly, the conversation of 2 Taoist priests nearby catches Ji Yuan's attention. He listens to them talking. The master was beaten while setting up his fortune-telling booth. He expressed his dissatisfaction. The disciple helplessly tried to dissuade him. Ji Yuan thought to himself, a big troublemaker and a disciple who worries too much. Interesting. The food they ordered has arrived. A large plate of vegetables and a plain bun. The disciple let out a deep sigh. On Ji Yuan's side, a table was covered with large fish and meat. There are even better ones later. The master and his disciple couldn't help but swallow. Ji Yuan said to the waiter, please invite those 2 Taoist priests over. It's time to eat. After the waiter delivered the message, the Taoist's disciple still looked worried. Can he afford the bill? The master casually said, who cares? Bring the steamed buns and cabbage. Let's go. The Taoist bowed and introduced himself as Qi Xian. He is known as Qin Song Taoist, and his disciple is Qi Wen. May I ask why you invited us to dinner, sir? Ji Yuan introduced himself. Then he mentioned that he had never met a Taoist before. Want to see something new? Qin Song, someone's asking about you. Your eyes. The apprentice, Qi Wen, coughs twice, to remind his master not to talk nonsense. Ji Yuan says let's not talk about it now. Let's talk after dinner. It's just that I didn't order any main course. Do you have steamed buns? Perfect. Master and disciple exchanged a glance. How could they resist? They ate voraciously. After a long while, the three of them were full. They watched Ji Yuan settle the bill. His disciple, Chi Wen, breathed a sigh of relief. All right, sir. That's good. Qing Song Daoren said, please let us treat you to a meal. Or, shall I tell your fortune? Ji Yuan also wanted to see it. Then, please, Dao Zhang. He then passed over his birthdate. The Dao Zhang took it and looked. His brows furrowed tighter and tighter. You're kidding me, right? Is this your birth chart? Ji Yuan answered naturally. This is it. I don't know about this life. But the birth chart from my past life should count as mine, right? Daoist Qin Song slammed the table and stood up. You're lying. If this were your birth chart, you'd have been dead long ago. His disciple, Chi Wen, quickly stopped him. Master Qin Song also came to his senses. That. I misspoke. He had only said half. When a mouthful of blood spurted out, then he fell to the ground, unable to get up. Chi Wen panicked. He hurriedly called out for his master. Don't leave me all alone. Ji Yuan reacted quickly, and immediately carried Daoist Qin Song on his back. He asked if there was a medical hall nearby. The shopkeeper quickly gave the location. Ji Yuan used his luck and lightness skill, and rushed out the door. I didn't expect him to be so accurate. And after calculating, he spits blood. It's obvious he can't bear the result of the calculation. Could it be because of leaking the secrets of the heavens? Ji Yuan continued on his journey, while channeling spiritual energy into the Taoist's body. Exchanging a meal for a life isn't worth it. He has to hang on. He arrived at the clinic. The doctor began to take his pulse, his brow furrowed. After a long while, he spoke. This Taoist's qi and blood are deficient. His life force is weak. Luckily, a master sealed his major acupoints, allowing him to hold on until now. I'm going to use acupuncture. Does anyone here know martial arts and acupoints? Help me. Ji Yuan clasped his fists. Doctor, please save him. I'll help you. Subsequently, the treatment went smoothly. With Ji Yuan's help, Qin Song Dao Ren was saved. As the saying goes, a chance encounter at the same table, revealing heavenly secrets risks disaster. Ji Yuan thought to himself, this doctor is even more impressive than the one from Ning'an County. Soon, Taoist Qin Song woke up. He immediately asked for water. His disciple, Chi Wen, was overwhelmed with joy and cried. Ji Yuan quickly brought a bowl of water. He fed the Taoist the water. Then, he cupped his hands in apology. I'm sorry to have caused you, sir, to end up like this. Qin Song Dao Ren said. I now understand what it means to rashly try to predict heaven's will. Ji Yuan thought, it seems my life is saved. It was just a joke. I imagine, Taoist master. You won't want to look at my face or my palm again. Qin Song Dao Ren raised his left hand. There's a wound up there. He said, no. When I just woke up, I already took a look at the gentleman's face. As soon as those words were spoken, Ji Yuan was stunned. This really is, old habits die hard. The Taoist coughed twice. The gentleman's face can't be read at all. Palmistry must be like this as well. Sir. You can't be an ordinary person, can you? Ji Yuan fell silent for a moment. Taoist, you should focus on resting. You need to correct your habit of speaking recklessly in the future. The Qing Song Taoist quickly nodded, sensing the situation. Got it, got it. I'll be more careful next time. Only talk about the good ones. Don't mention the bad ones. Don't say what shouldn't be said. Then Ji Yuan chatted with the doctor. He said his eyes had a problem. He thought he could rely on cultivation to restore them. But this doctor's medical skills are so good. Let him give it a try. Which old doctor looks so shocked? Do you have a problem with your eyes? Your acupoint strike was so precise just now. The old man waved his finger in front of Ji Yuan's eyes. After thinking for a moment. I've been practicing medicine for many years. Based on my judgment, your eyes are completely blind. Can you really see those blurry shadows? Ji Yuan thought to himself. Now that I think about it, is it possible that my blurry vision doesn't come from my eyes? The old man, however, became interested. He took out a silver needle and asked if he should try acupuncture. Ji Yuan agreed. The old man then carefully held the silver needle, and focused intently as he aimed at the Mingmu acupoint. There was a buzzing sound. A silver needle flashed past. It grazed the old man's hand and disappeared into the ceiling beam. Ji Yuan hurriedly asked, are you alright? The old man shook his head. Was it your protective chi? I'm afraid not. Ji Yuan offered no resistance whatsoever just now. The spiritual energy has also been withdrawn. But the moment the needle was about to strike, a black chess piece suddenly appeared. Before he could react, he was already injured by the flying needle. Ji Yuan looked up and said, don't try it. The old man looked regretful. There's nothing more we can do. What a pity. The next day, Ji Yuan changed into a new set of clothes. He gave the two Taoists some loose silver. He told Qi Wen to keep a close eye on your master. The little Taoist understood instantly. He immediately gave a knowing look. Then Ji Yuan said his goodbyes and left. He thought to himself, the divination is indeed miraculous. But it's too dangerous. I won't learn it. On the 8th day of the 5th month, on the old birch mountain, Ji Yuan held a fishing rod and fished by the riverbank. He casually picked up the Tongming book and started reading. Currently, Ji Yuan only has the Qi guiding technique. He hasn't practiced any Qi cultivation techniques yet. The path of cultivation is still long. After waiting for a long time, there's still no bite on the hook. The outsider's teachings clearly mention that there's a water spirit in this pond. It should appear by sunset. Ji Yuan hears footsteps. Someone's coming at this time. As the saying goes, with hope in their hearts, they treat ailments. The road ahead is long and cannot be abandoned. Ji Yuan heard footsteps. Two children, dressed in clean robes, about 13 or 14 years old, ran over. They saw Ji Yuan sitting by the pond. The boy suggested they play a prank on him. So the two quietly approached Ji Yuan from behind. They shouted loudly at the same time, but Ji Yuan didn't react at all. The two children looked disappointed. Is he deaf? Ji Yuan's voice suddenly came, having fun. The two children jumped at the sudden sound. Then they got angry. You tricked us. Ji Yuan smiled slightly. Is this rare? I thought I could see through these two children, but there's no demonic aura about them. Interesting. What have I stumbled upon this time? A mountain god or a cultivator? So he pretended to turn back and continue reading. The two children wouldn't have it. You should leave quickly. Anyway, you won't catch any fish. Ji Yuan asked in return. Aren't you afraid of wild animals? The boy replied, our martial arts are very strong. We're not afraid. Ji Yuan chuckled and said, my martial arts are very strong too. Just then, the fishing rod suddenly jerked violently. Ji Yuan gave a hard tug. He reeled in a small, silvery, translucent fish. The two children exclaimed, Yin Xiaozi. The boy instinctively threw out a round, blue jade pendant. He shouted, the Yin Xiaozi is ours. The jade pendant magically grew larger. It flew towards the fishing rod. Ji Yuan swung the bamboo pole. With a light shake, it parted easily. Then, he stretched out his left hand. A stream of water flew out from the pond. It condensed into a water sphere the size of a ball. A silver fish happened to fall in. Precisely as the water sphere formed. No matter how much he swims, he can't escape. The boy, with a face full of anger, who are you? How dare you steal my fish? Seeing the blue jade pendant, Ji Yuan immediately recognized their identity. Are you saying this clear water pool belongs solely to your Jade Mountain? The boy angrily said, you know we're from Jade Mountain. Why don't you just give us the fish? Ji Yuan smiled. I spent half the day catching just one. Even if you're from a prestigious immortal sect, you can't just steal it. This clear water pond belongs to our Yuhuai Mountain. So the silver quail is ours too. Ji Yuan was also getting angry. This place has no restrictions. It's 700 or 800 miles from your mountain gate. How can it belong to you? Aren't there any elders with you? Are you just letting these two children run wild? Just as the words left my mouth, someone actually responded. I apologize for the disturbance, sir. This is indeed our Yuhuai Mountain's fault. A man dressed in a blue flowing robe floated over gracefully. Ji Yuan thought to himself, where did he come from? I didn't notice him before at all. The man also looked surprised. Who exactly is this person? His body is invisible, no aura. There is no divine light above him, but he blends perfectly with his surroundings. The technique he used to control the water just now was even more impressive, and he could see through my hiding place. This person is definitely not ordinary. By heaven's conscience, I swear, I was just testing with that shout. I didn't expect a living person to actually emerge. As the saying goes, at the edge of the clear water pond, a mischievous child plays. Unintentionally testing, yet it becomes true. Ji Yuan said it, I just called out casually. I didn't expect that an elder would actually follow. The person thought. He can see through me hidden in the magical artifact. Then he saw the Tongming strategy beside Ji Yuan. Is this the heavenly seal script? This person is definitely no ordinary man. You speak, my lord, you must be joking. It's just two young ones causing trouble. After saying that, the man in blue waved his hand. The two young boys were immediately pulled toward him by an invisible force. To explain, the silver Xiaozi is only available once a year. That's why the boys were in such a hurry. He thought to himself, this person's cultivation is unfathomable. I can't afford to have a conflict with him. So he said, I am Qiu Feng from Yuhua Mountain. May I ask your esteemed name? Why have you come here? Ji Yuan introduced himself. He said, I am just here by chance. Chiu Feng cupped his fists and said, since the gentleman has already caught the silver carp, we won't disturb him. Ji Yuan thought to himself. He's very cautious. Is this how my first encounter with an immortal practitioner ends? On the way back, the two young boys were disgruntled. The boy even started cursing. Chiu Feng was immediately stopped. Unexpectedly, a voice came from behind, laughing. That's a valid point. It's not quite right to fight over things with a child. Chiu Feng's face showed caution. Oh. We've been heard. Ji Yuan smiled and said, Mr. Chiu, no need to worry. I'm not the kind of person who would argue with a child. Looking at Ji Yuan's cheerful smile, Chiu Feng asked, Mr. Ji, is there anything else? Ji Yuan pointed to Yin Xiaozi behind him. You want this so much. Why don't you trade something for it? Chiu Feng was relieved. He bowed, Sir, what do you want? Anything presentable will do. Ji Yuan thought, this fish is delicious, but right now, what I need most are cultivation techniques. To speak of cultivation insights, rare books and strange records, or even the most basic, chi-refining techniques would do. The girl happily blurted out, I have basic chi-refining techniques. Just use this to exchange. Chiu Feng quickly stopped him. He thought, using the basic chi cultivation technique to exchange, what's the difference between that and giving it away for free? Even I don't have a enlightenment strategy, such a rare book. It seems he's very interested in rare things. So he said, I have an ancient chapter here. You must be interested, sir. This is an incomplete fragment of the binding spirit technique. It may help with understanding magical arts and focusing the mind. I wonder if it satisfies you, sir. Ji Yuan lightly caught it with 2 fingers. He thought, binding spirit, the exotic technique mentioned in the book. Although he was quite happy, Ji Yuan still prefers the basic chi cultivation manual. A single silver-haired cicada is hardly worth this much. Thank you for your kind offer, Mr. Chiu. I appreciate your generosity, Mr. Chiu. He said, then shrugged his shoulders. The water sphere flew steadily towards Chiu Feng. The latter quickly cast a spell to immobilize the water sphere. But the unexpectedly heavy water sphere rippled. This time, even the 2 young boys can tell the difference now. They blurt out, so impressive. Chiu Feng sighed lightly in his heart. Mr. Ji, then let's part ways here. If there's a chance, do come visit Yuhuai Mountain. Ji Yuan cupped his hands and saluted. Alright. I'll definitely visit if there's a chance. Both sides were fairly satisfied. Then they parted ways. Suddenly, the girl called out to Ji Yuan and ran over. She held out a jade slip with both hands. This is my basic chi cultivation technique. You just said you wanted it. Ji Yuan looked at Chiu Feng, who was bowing, with a surprised and delighted expression. He laughed heartily and patted the girl's head. Wonderful. Wonderful. Your name is Yi, right? If you encounter difficulties in the future, I will do my best to help you. As the saying goes, when you think there's no way out, a new path will appear. Literal translation, mountains exhausted, water exhausted, doubt no road, willows dark, flowers bright, another village. Chiu Feng flew in the sky with 2 children. The boy had a look of astonishment. Shushu, it can't be that you're this happy just because of a fish, right? Chiu Feng says that there are people in this world with profound Taoist wisdom. Meeting them is a matter of fate. You don't understand now, but in the future, you'll envy it. Ji Yuan watched Chiu Feng leave. He suddenly thought of the Wei family head and realized he forgot to ask him. He looked at the 2 jade tokens in his hand. Ji Yuan sat cross-legged by the river. He began studying the contents above. Ji Yuan infused a surge of spiritual energy into the jade token. Immediately, a divine thought manifested the content in his mind. It turned out that the chi cultivation technique was about connecting the 5 elements energy hidden in the dantian. Ji Yuan silently recited the incantation and entered a state of visualization. As soon as the thought arises, the fire of the heart manifests. A ball of heavenly fire appears above the giant peak, in the same position in the world. On the land, rivers converge, waves surging. At the most crucial of the 2 steps, the transformation of yin and yang, fire and rivers converge. A strange vortex is formed. The most crucial step, yin and yang furnace. The center of yin and yang taiji, a giant alchemy furnace appears. Ji Yuan let out a breath. The furnace is done. It's not as terrifying as described. Some people even fail thousands of times. It seems my talent is quite good. The spiritual energy is being absorbed into the elixir furnace. So, is this elixir chi considered magical power? Suddenly, a few chess pieces shot through the air. Before Ji Yuan could react, they began absorbing the elixir chi. Ji Yuan quickly stopped them. The strands of danqi haven't even formed into spiritual power. Before they've already been split up by 70%. Shun. Ji Yuan exits the contemplative world, and looks at the chess piece in his fingertip. Forget it, forget it. After all, it's all mine. I'll pay more attention next time. A few days later, Ji Yuan was aboard a small boat heading to Chunhui Mansion. It was said to take 3 days to reach. As night fell, a large ship appeared in the distance. Ji Yuan sat in the cabin, enjoying fresh fish, and remarked that it tasted really good. Suddenly, there was a splash. Someone on the opposite side shouted, "Not good. Someone is drunk. Someone's drunk and fell into the water." A few fishermen with good swimming skills jumped off the big boat. Save him. Ji Yuan thought, it might be hard to save him. The visibility is too low. Even if I use the minor water avoidance technique, it won't work. Ji Yuan suddenly focused. He stared intently at the river's surface in the distance. A drunken man was seen floating on the river's surface. He seemed to be dragged, drifting towards the large boat. Everyone helped lift him onto the boat. It seemed he was alright, but no one noticed. A huge dark shadow flashing past underwater. They said on the small boat that the man was saved. They all sat down to eat. Ji Yuan turned to look at the river. He told the fisherman, "I'm full." Then he turned and walked out. But his hand was dragging a bundle. "Speaking of the fisherman's rice, half a pot. Please accept it with a smile." As he spoke, he flicked his finger. The water flew out. A large blue fish quickly darted out from the river. It opened its mouth and caught the water. As the saying goes, if you fall into the water by mistake, who will save you? The blue fish greedily sips the water. Suddenly, a fisherman ran into the small boat. He said it looked like there was a water ghost. The man in red said, "Don't panic." He picked up the cup of water and walked to the bow of the boat, muttering to himself, "You don't offend me. The cup of water is a gesture of respect. I won't offend you. One cup of water, a gesture of respect. If you offend me, I won't offend you." After saying this, he poured the water from the cup into the river. Ji Yuan thought to himself, "This is no ordinary water. It's water with awakened intelligence. The greedy big green fish. It was also to drink, right? The young master I just saved from drowning. It must have been for the drink. If only all spirits were this cute." The next morning, Ji Yuan looked at the jade slip in his hand. This spirit binding technique not only helps me focus my mind, but it really can bind spirits. But if I use it now, and summon the river god of Chunmujiang, I'm afraid I'll be slapped to death in a fit of rage. The only ones I could probably summon are lesser gods, like the land gods. When they reached the dock of Chunhui Mansion, Ji Yuan got off the boat and walked. He thought to himself, it's almost the 15th of May. I wonder if Wei Wuwei is ready. On the night of May 15th, by the riverbank of Chunhui Manor, the head of the Wei family brought his family here. With a wave of his hand, his subordinates poured 2 jars of liquid into the river. Meanwhile, Ji Yuan had been waiting on a tree nearby for quite some time. As the liquid was poured into the water, there was a change in the river. I saw the splashing of waves. Ji Yuan thought to himself, it's here. I saw a water ripple approaching. With a splash, a giant turtle stuck its head out. Under the moonlight, the old turtle was as big as a small boat. Has the guy named Jing not arrived? It seems his destined misfortune hasn't passed yet, but it doesn't affect me. Perhaps it's even a good thing. Streams of water rose from the river surface, flying towards several carts on the shore, sweeping away everything on them. Speak. What do you want to ask for? Just delivering something. He. Let's talk about your request. The head of the Wei family forced himself to stay calm, greeting and introducing himself. He mentioned that his ancestors, Lan Yu, had ties to Yu Huaishan. He wanted to ask the immortal how to enter the immortal sect. The giant turtle looked at him with curiosity. You actually know the origin of the jade pendant? Come closer, let me take a look at you. The head of the Wei family stubbornly leaned in close to the old turtle. Why can't I see your destiny clearly? Impossible. You're clearly just a mortal. Since you know about Jade Mountain, have you met some expert? Head Wei was startled. He thought to himself, wondering if Mr. Ji would allow him to reveal his information. The old tortoise seemed to see through this. Its tone became urgent. You must have met someone, right? You must have seen him before. Wei Wuwei. Can you introduce me to a master? Just one sentence is enough. Did you hear that? The old turtle's impatient demeanor frightened everyone. The servants even drew their weapons. The head of the Wei family quickly stopped them. He said, Senior, please don't be upset. I have indeed met a wise master. Old Turtle seemed to realize his lapse in behavior. He said he was just in a rush. Please, continue. For now, there's no choice but to continue. This immortal master. I cannot reveal the identity of this wise person. Let me speak first, and you can decide how to proceed after hearing it. The giant tortoise agreed. So, the head of the Wei family began to recount the events. and the various miraculous deeds of Ji Yuan. For example, the little fox bowed and asked for help. The giant tortoise asked, "Did the gentleman save it?" Naturally, he did. Later, I heard the fox was homesick. So, the gentleman released it back into the mountains and forests. The giant tortoise was enraged upon hearing this. Something he couldn't even beg for. And that fox actually left on its own. Unbelievable. Doesn't know a good thing when it sees one. The head of the Wei family then went on to explain how Ji Yuan helped him uncover the secret of the jade pendant, and the matter of the jujube tree in his courtyard, bearing fruit overnight. The giant turtle, upon hearing this, exclaimed, "What a true expert. I really want to meet them." Ji Yuan, who was listening from the tree nearby, broke out in a cold sweat. "You've really misunderstood. As the saying goes, one must go to great lengths to seek a fateful encounter. You can't see the true face of Mount Lu." Master Wei finished speaking. Finally, it was said that the master had gone on a long journey. He truly doesn't know when he'll be back. The giant tortoise also understands that such experts are unpredictable. He won't be pressed further. Firstly, a child with exceptional cultivation talent appeared in the family. There's also another convenient method. If your Wei family has a direct descendant child under 5 years old, you can also send them there. The crane guarding the mountain changes every 20 years. Starting next year, it will be the one who has ties with your Wei family. The old turtle whispered into the Wei family head's ear, "You bring the jade pendant. The crane will definitely appear. At that time, ask him to take the child under his wing, and request to accompany the child as an elder for a few years. And this Yuhua mountain is right here." After saying that, the giant turtle turned and left. "From now on, it all depends on your luck." The head of the Wei family quickly expressed his gratitude. He stated that the Wei family would prepare gifts here again next year. But thinking about the old turtle's attitude toward Ji Yuan, the head of the Wei family realized that compared to Yuhua mountain, he might have missed an even better opportunity. It's a pity there's no regret medicine. He turned to his family and said it was done. "Tonight, I'll treat you all to a good meal and drinks." Ji Yuan watched the Wei family leave, thinking, the old turtle wants to see me. It's probably related to cultivation. It's a pity that I, a half-baked cultivator, can't be of much help at the moment. You seek fate, he also seeks fate. Haven't I also been the same? The next day, Ji Yuan arrived at the Jiangshan temple. He arrived at Chunhui mansion. This first temple of Chunmujiang, I must take a look. He bought 3 incense sticks. He stood in front of the statue of Jiangshan. It was an ancient self-transforming dragon. It had failed to transform into a dragon twice already. Despite this, he is still an extremely rare, righteous god of the Chuanmu River, one who can truly govern the Chuanmu River. Ji Yuan had just lit the incense, when a surge of Xianhuang qi suddenly rose. Ji Yuan had a questioning look on his face. What's going on? On the other side, the old turtle arrived at the center of the Chuanmu River. You came to deliver a gift to the river god. This is also the first time in all these years that the two of them are meeting. The old turtle is currently facing a bottleneck in his cultivation, and wants to seek the river god's guidance for a way forward. The river god asks, "You've helped many mortals over the years, even using your divination skills. Has anyone ever repaid you?" The old turtle fell silent for a long time. "Looks like no one has." The river god said he could help the old turtle set up a statue in the temple, and use the power of the incense to help him transform. But is this the path you want to take? The old turtle fell silent once again. The river god stopped speaking. He took a deep gulp from the jar. "This is really good." At that moment, a mysterious yellowish energy appeared in the sky. The energy then entered the top of the dragon's head. A wave of dizziness followed. The dragon began to sway left and right. The old turtle thought, "This strike is so powerful." The dragon recovered, and said to the old turtle, "Wait here for me. I'll be right back." Saying this, the dragon transformed into a wisp of shadow and swam upwards. He went straight to the river god temple, transforming into the form of an old man. Looking at the 3 incense sticks extinguished in the incense burner, he appeared deep in thought. At this moment, Ji Yuan also stared in shock at the temple. Has the river god arrived? Time to leave, time to leave. He quickened his pace to leave. As the saying goes, an unintended action attracts the river god. Fortunes and misfortunes are unpredictable, better get out of here. Ji Yuan turned around and saw that the river god was making such a big fuss, clearly targeting me. Could it be because of that strange Xianhuang qi? Luckily, I decisively extinguished the incense immediately. From now on, I should stick to bowing respectfully when entering temples. This incense shouldn't be casually lit. Time to go, time to go. The river god stood outside the temple, looking utterly bewildered. This kind of thing only exists in legends. I never thought anyone could actually do it. But why was the incense lit and then taken away? Did I do something wrong? So the river god returned to his water palace with a disappointed look. He hugged a pile of nines and started squatting. He said to the old turtle, "Do you dare to risk your entire cultivation? Do a fortune for me?" The old turtle immediately looked terrified. His face was full of fear. The river god said, "This fortune is very risky for you. If you survive after I tell you, I will do my best to help you in the future. Since you've said that, what else can the old turtle do?" I could only force myself to agree. Jiang Shen threw the incense ashes he had just brought back to the old turtle. With the old turtle spell, the entire dark turtle shell faintly lit up with patterns of the 8 trigrams and the 9 palaces. As the old turtle divined, the more he calculated, the more surprised the old turtle became. Suddenly opened his eyes wide. Jiang Shen nervously asked, "What did you find out? What did you calculate?" Old turtle looked innocent. "Lord Jiang, I swear by my lifelong cultivation, the divination I just did, the hexagram is completely blank." The Jiaolong was silent for a long time. Sighing, he said, forget it. I'll pass on the technique I've comprehended. If you can't make a breakthrough within 10 years, then consider the path of incense and golden body." The giant tortoise looked overjoyed. It repeatedly thanked him. The one who started it all, Ji Yuan, was currently rushing forward with all his strength. His current destination is the address left by the sword immortals Wakuangtu, Ezhou. He is now using spiritual energy to perform light movement. His speed is now faster than a car, and he doesn't feel tired at all. Moreover, he has also obtained cultivation techniques. He feels incredibly elated. His next goal is to learn to fly. It turns out, Ji Yuan's confidence is quite puzzling. He's lost again. The direction is definitely correct. According to the map the city god gave me, there should be a river here. This is ridiculous. Could it be that the city god's map is outdated? Has the terrain changed? While Ji Yuan was feeling confused, he suddenly noticed an animal trap nearby. This meant there were people around. That makes things easier. Later that night, a plume of white smoke rose in the distance. For strong men were gathered around a campfire, roasting meat. They are all carrying weapons. It looks like a few hunters. One of them, named Fang Qiu, said they've been out for days, but haven't hunted anything big. They even lost a string of beads. What bad luck. The other man is named Ding Xing. Fang Qiu said, "That was something my mother asked for at the temple. It's different from the bought one." Just then, a figure appeared nearby. Ding Xing signaled everyone to be quiet. Someone's coming. Several hunters either quickly drew their bows, or grabbed their spears. Ji Yuan hurriedly called for everyone to calm down. "I'm lost. I saw a fire here, so I came here to ask for directions." As the saying goes, great ambitions lead to losing one's way. Asking for directions in the dead of night. "Where are you going?" The hunter, clutching his spear, asked loudly. Meanwhile, several others were also observing Ji Yuan. "Which direction is Qingshui County? Normally, if I cross the mountain and head south, I should be able to see a river." "A river?" Several hunters look at each other. "You don't mean the old Qingshui River, do you?" Ji Yuan should be returning, and I heard from the elders that the old Qingshui River, it was already diverted more than 20 years ago, so that's how it is. Ji Yuan suddenly understood. "How far is it from here to Qingshui County?" The Han man pointed to the east. "Walk in that direction for about 20 to 30 miles. You'll be almost there." Ji Yuan thought to himself, "It's not far. At my speed, I'll be there in just a few minutes." "Thank you all," Ji Yuan said as he turned and walked away. Fang Chuan asked, "Master, it's almost dark. It's dangerous for you to travel now." Ji Yuan thought to himself, "This man has a good heart." He turned around and looked. Since Ji Yuan began cultivating, he's been able to sense the aura of others. This big man has a strange red-black aura swirling around him. If you don't look carefully, you might not notice it. So, Ji Yuan began his act. "There's no choice, can't exactly spend the night here, right? And the weapons in your hands look frightening." Ji Yuan showed fear. The hunters immediately felt relieved. They laughed heartily, saying, "Sir, rest assured, we are hunters, not bandits. If you don't mind, come and sit. Come back with us tomorrow." Ji Yuan pretended to be pleasantly surprised. Then he sincerely thanked everyone. The enthusiastic man briefly introduced his companions. Ji Yuan also introduced himself. He fabricated a reason for being there. Then he began chatting with the hunters. When the timing was right, Ji Yuan casually asked Fang Qiu, "I can see Brother Fang's eyes look dark. Have you not been getting enough rest lately?" Fang Qiu replies, "You're right, sir. I've been having nightmares for over a month straight." Ji Yuan asks, "What have you been dreaming about?" I know a bit about dream interpretation. Feng Qiu scratches his head, nightmares, you know. But I often end up in the same situation in my dreams. I saw a pair of bloodshot green eyes. It was terrifying. Didn't Feng's brother go to the city god temple to pray? Feng Qiu explained that their Qinshui county was too small, and didn't have a city god temple. Ji Yuan thought, so that's it. No wonder he was harassed for over a month without anyone helping him. As night fell, everyone had fallen into a deep sleep. Feng Qiu was sweating profusely, clearly having another nightmare. Ji Yuan quietly walked up to his side. He extended his hand, lightly using his spiritual power to gather a trace of spiritual energy. He directed it towards Feng Qiu's forehead. Feng Qiu's expression quickly relaxed. This should temporarily suppress it. It's a pity I still can't enter dreams. It cannot be cured. Early the next morning, the hunter's trap unexpectedly caught a roe deer. Ji Yuan, taking advantage of everyone's joy, asked if he could enter the village to buy a meal. In fact, he wanted to follow them and investigate what exactly was on Feng Qiu's body. The hunters were very welcoming. Many people invited Ji Yuan to their homes for a meal. They just happened to be having roe deer meat. Ji Yuan thought to himself, since I've already encountered this, how can I leave without resolving it? As the saying goes, skilled acting helps you get through. An accidental encounter is never ordinary. Ji Yuan and the hunters enjoyed a lively meal together, having dinner at Ding Xing's house. After everyone had eaten their fill, they began inviting Ji Yuan to stay at their house. Ji Yuan readily accepted Feng Qiu's invitation. He stayed at their house that night. Late into the night, a sudden, shrill cat cry came. Ji Yuan sat straight up in bed and looked out the window. On the roof of the main house, sat at least a dozen wild cats, domestic cats. Ji Yuan felt his scalp tingle. What on earth is this filthy thing? Ji Yuan quietly sat up, and lightly touched the oil lamp with his finger. Then, he activated his spiritual power. He flicked his finger. The lamp oil flew straight towards Feng Qiu's bedroom. It hit the oil lamp inside the room directly. Dozens of drops of oil splashed from the lamp. They flew towards the surroundings of the room. This move was a combination of Ji Yuan's martial arts and water-controlling techniques. It was incredibly skillful. Ji Yuan then lit a fire starter. He gathered spiritual energy and gently blew. A spark surprisingly didn't go out. It flew into Feng Qiu's house. Then he entered a meditative state. The furnace in his vision began to burn fiercely. Large flames erupted. At the same time, the flames in Feng Qiu's house surged instantly. A shrill scream rang out. A dark green aura rushed out of the room. Ji Yuan said, "Is this it? I thought it would be more impressive." Meanwhile, Feng Qiu's mother heard the scream. She hurried to check on her son. Feng Qiu said he had another nightmare. He encountered a monster, but this time, the monster was suddenly burned by a huge fire. Ji Yuan also put on his clothes. He acted as if he knew nothing and asked what was going on. Mother Feng said it was just a nightmare. "It's nothing, nothing." Ji Yuan glanced at Feng Qiu. Although the fate fire was weak, it was no longer a big problem. The next morning, Ji Yuan found Ding Xing, and asked where the Feng family's ancestral grave is. Ji Yuan said, "I'm just going to take a look." "Ding, do you believe me?" Ding Xing directly expressed disbelief. "Sir, you just met the Feng family. Your relationship isn't close enough to go worship his ancestors, is it?" Ji Yuan could only reveal the truth. "Did you hear the screams last night, Brother Ding?" Ding Xing, sweating profusely, "Yes, yes, yes. I was just about to ask you, sir, what happened last night?" Ji Yuan smiled enigmatically. "Lead the way. You'll find out then." Confused and curious, Ding Xing led Ji Yuan to the back mountain outside the village. "Mr. Ji is right here. Why is it so cold?" Ji Yuan moved closer. He looked at the inscription in front of him. Then he reminded, "Brother Ding, stand further back. Don't get your clothes wet later." He extended his right hand and pointed towards the grave. A whisk appeared in front of his pointed finger. He suddenly pulled back with great force. Then a sound of rushing water was heard. Ding Xing stared in shock as dirty, foul water flowed out from Feng Qiu's father's grave. The filthy water seemed like a murky water dragon being dragged, spouting over 3 meters into the air, shooting toward the distance. Then a hoarse roar came from the grave. Ding Xing was so frightened his body froze. Ji Yuan turned around and smiled. "Don't be afraid. It's all right, I'm here." A burning wick was stuck in his hand. Ji Yuan blew on it. The wick carried a stable, unextinguished flame and flew into the tomb. Immediately, a burst of flames erupted. The terrifying screeching became even sharper. About a minute later, it stopped. Ji Yuan sighed. It really is a corpse-sheltering curse. The external text says, corpse-sheltering curse. It harms the descendants. As the saying goes, corpse sheltering causes misfortune to the descendants. Fate should have ended, but miraculously, it was saved. Ji Yuan said, dust to dust, earth to earth, the matter is resolved. Let's go. Brother Ding. Remember to have Fang Qiu move his father to another place. Don't mention this to anyone else. Ding Xing's legs are even trembling now. He keeps agreeing, saying, wait for me. Ji Yuan is on his way. A black chess piece flashed briefly in his sleeve. It really is another hater. Then, Ji Yuan bid farewell to everyone. The nightmare will not come again. Fang Qiu cupped his hands and bowed. I will definitely listen to you, sir. The matter is resolved. Ji Yuan turned and left. Ding Xing looked at Fang Qiu. Suddenly, he said, why don't you bow twice to the sir? Fang Qiu looked confused. Why? Ding Xing remembered Ji Yuan's words. He didn't say anything more. Inside Ningyan County School, Yin Xiaoxian was teaching children to read. He suddenly called a halt, preparing to try the method Ji Yuan taught him. Today, I'll change the topic. Everyone can participate in the discussion. Share your opinions. The children were chattering away. This was their first time experiencing such a novel teaching method. Yin Zhao began to tell a mythological story. In the North Sea, there is a phoenix tree, 3 myriads of feet deep in the sea. Then he began to ask questions. The children who used to be too shy to speak are now raising their hands one by one. They are all eager to give it a try. I didn't expect Mr. G's method of combining teaching with fun to be so effective. He took up a brush and began writing something on the paper. On the other side, Ji Yuan suddenly felt something. With a thought, a chess piece appeared at his fingertip. In the distance, Ji Yuan can vaguely see Master Yin, who is writing. Such a friend is truly a blessing. Unknowingly, it has already entered the height of summer. Ji Yuan is unaware of this. And Ji Yuan. According to the records in the Sword Intent Scroll, this should be near the Mu family residence. Ji Yuan crouched down. He pushed aside a patch of tall weeds with an oiled paper umbrella, revealing a weathered gravestone behind. The inscription read, Grave of my father, Suo Li. Suo Kuangtu was indeed not his real name. Ji Yuan knelt beside the grave and bowed. Hero Suo, you were unparalleled in martial arts, the foremost in the martial world. I never imagined you'd end up like this. After the prostration, Ji Yuan lightly leaped onto the rocks behind the tomb. He channeled his spiritual energy. A small stone flew into his hand. He began to dig with force. After more than 10 digs, he hit something. A dark yellow wooden box and a mostly decayed, something resembling a long sword. Ji Yuan drew out the long sword. This so-called legendary long sword, Clear Shadow, doesn't look like a divine weapon at all. He then reached out and flicked the sword's body. Do you wish to see the light of day again with me? As soon as the words fell, the sword itself gently trembled, and emitted streams of spiritual energy. Good, good, good. It truly has its own unique brilliance, compared to the Clear Shadow longsword. It's not as exquisitely crafted as the Sword Intent Post, but Ji Yuan quickly adjusted his mindset. He obtained the Sword Intent Post, and having the Clear Shadow longsword is already very good. Let's look at the handleless longsword. Ji Yuan suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He broke off a section of the vine nearby. It was wrapped around the hilt of the sword. Then, he infused it with spiritual energy. This vine became the sword's hilt. I will often nurture it with my spiritual energy. As for this sword manual, it should be handed down to the descendants of the Zhou family. He left a small pastry and a sauce-coated rabbit leg in front of the tombstone. Ji Yuan floated away. As the saying goes, he finally found the home of the sword immortal. The divine weapon was able to see the light of day. On the way back, Ji Yuan encountered a procession delivering gifts. From their conversation, he learned that there was a celebration in the village. A celebration feast. Should we crash it? Anyway, I'll just give a red envelope. I have been traveling for a long time. Finally, I've come across someone. Can I go to the village to have some water and stay the night? It's not a big deal. A few of them looked at Ji Yuan's attire. He looked like an educated person. They quickly said, if you don't mind, come with us to the Zhao family residence. The banquet at Zhejiazhuang hadn't started yet. Ji Yuan sat at a table, listening to others discussing that he was from Jizhou, and seemed very learned. Just then, a burst of laughter came. Someone shouted, wrong. Wrong. Why are there 2 more characters on the left than on the right? An old man said. I'm confused. Someone suggested, isn't there a scholar over there? Ask him to write one. Writing a couplet before the banquet is a local custom. The elder just arrived and hasn't spoken yet. Ji Yuan already said he would write the couplet. No problem. Consider it a token of appreciation for Master Zhao's congratulatory gift. The elder repeatedly expressed his thanks. Ji Yuan smiled. He took the pen from the groom. He began to write elegantly on the paper. 100 years of love, a double heart knot. 1,000-mile marriage, a single thread connects. Even though most people couldn't read, they could all see how beautiful the calligraphy was. They clapped and cheered. Old Zhao insisted on having Ji Yuan sit at the head table. Ji Yuan didn't refuse. The wedding banquet officially began. Ji Yuan raised a glass with everyone, celebrating this joyous occasion together. Suddenly, auspicious energy surged from the heavens, gathering in Ji Yuan's sleeve, absorbed by the chess piece. Even the Qingting sword has gained quite a few benefits from the flow of spiritual resonance. It has received a lot of advantages. After a long while, the banquet ended. Ji Yuan walked toward the place he had arranged to stay. He passed by a local temple. Ji Yuan stopped in his tracks. He waited until midnight. Everyone is resting. Ji Yuan walked out of the house again. Meanwhile, a puff of smoke materialized in the earth temple. A kind-looking old man walked out. He bowed from afar to Ji Yuan, saying, "It's rare to have an immortal visit. I'm the humble local deity, here to greet you." Ji Yuan returned the greeting. "I don't deserve such respect. I must also thank you for your hospitality. I wonder where, sir, your celestial home is?" Ji Yuan humbly stated that he had no celestial home. He just travels around. But the earth god is a local, right? He thought to himself unexpectedly, the earth god temple's incense is not prosperous. There's actually a true god. The old man looked full of emotion. Yes, it's been almost 300 years. So, is there something the earth god needs to appear for? The local god said that cultivators like you are rare. Just came out to have a look. Ji Yuan said that would disappoint the local god. I'm just a small cultivator, not an immortal. I'm no immortal master. The local god smiled and said, "You're being too modest. I think you're much more capable than that." Then the local god took out a piece of yellow paper folded together. "It seems there should be something written here, but my magical powers are too weak to see it. Sir, could you please help me? Looks like there is something going on after all." Ji Yuan doesn't refuse. He takes the yellow paper and unfolds it. Ink marks start to appear on it. Could it be the heavenly script? The local deity looked anxious. "Sir, is this a treasure?" Ji Yuan explained, "The difficulty of creating a celestial seal is high. It's rare, but not necessarily extremely valuable. It also depends on the content. As the saying goes, fortune favors the lucky." The local deity sought help at midnight. Ji Yuan continued speaking. "It seems that the above is about divine path cultivation, and the method for connecting with the earth's veins." The land immediately bowed in respect. "Please, sir, read the contents of the book for me. I have kept this booklet for over 100 years. It can't be torn or shredded. It is impervious to water and fire. Even the city god of the county has no solution." Ji Yuan became interested. "Oh, even the county's city god can't see this?" The land deity quickly said, "I swear it's not a lie. If you can read the characters above, please teach me." Ji Yuan opened the booklet. "Don't rush, land god. Let me take a closer look." He thought, although this heavenly script is hard to read, but the Taoist power of a county city god should definitely be able to see the words. There must be some other hidden mystery here. In Ji Yuan's eyes, the yellow paper booklet in his hand was changing. There was actually a flow of opportunity. A blurry image began to form on the entire yellow paper, and at the center, a large character appeared in black. "Save." He subconsciously read this word aloud. With a bang, a faint divine light flashed. Several places on this large yellow paper were scorched black. Ji Yuan looked embarrassed. "I ruined it. What do I do?" Meanwhile, the earth god beside him found that he could actually see the words on it. He repeatedly bowed to Ji Yuan, thanking him. "Thank you, sir, for breaking the spell." Ji Yuan quickly explained that the yellow paper had some scorch marks. The land spirit said it didn't matter. "Sir's magical power is profound. I'm already incredibly grateful that I can see the words." Ji Yuan naturally also knew that the burnt part didn't affect the main text. With a slight visualization, he found himself in his own artistic conception. It's undergoing an astonishing transformation. I've benefited greatly. Ji Yuan asked the earth god, "Where did you get this booklet?" The earth god explained that he had dug it up from the ground during his lifetime. He didn't expect it to appear beside him after his death. He then realized that this booklet was no ordinary thing. Ji Yuan said apologetically, "So this is your destined opportunity. If you can break the restriction yourself, you'll receive immense benefits. Now, I'm getting a lucky break. I'm content with this. If it weren't for you, sir, I don't know how much longer it would take to see the inscription above." Ji Yuan thought, whatever. One more chance, and he wouldn't be able to bear it. So he solemnly warned Shirdi. "This booklet is not to be taken lightly. Don't let anyone else see it in the future. Once you've learned the cultivation method, Don't forget your original intentions when you achieve success. I don't want to bear any consequences for my actions today in the future. The land pays a deep bow. Zhao De of Zhao family village, honoring the teachings of Mr. Zun. Ji Yuan also returns the gesture with a fist salute. A new virtual fragment appears in Ji Yuan's hand. The night grows late, and Ji Yuan quietly sits indoors. He enters a state of contemplation. The body of the pill furnace in his mind has already manifested. The 5 colors of metal, water, wood, fire, and earth are now visible. The center of the furnace has transformed into the yin and yang energies. The furnace fire has become much more solid. True fire is described in the Tongming Su as a miraculous flame. The black flame is the yin fire formed from the 2 energies. The white flame is the yang fire. Now, all 3 have merged into one. Could this be the legendary 3-flavored true fire? And then, there's the character 4, rescue. There has been a faint echo lingering in the air. It seemed to be reminding Ji Yuan that the word still lingers. Ji Yuan understands. This word is the key opportunity for him tonight. He walks over to the Qingting sword. He presses the sword with his finger between the blades. It is as if his thoughts move with his heart. His body moves with his thoughts. Ji Yuan wiped the Qingting sword. A green aura flashed. A wisp of Xianhuang energy gathered at his fingertips. The life-saving order became a spirit. With a hum, the rust on the sword was instantly shaken off. The long sword spontaneously levitated. The blade shone brightly, its cold light constantly swirling. The spirituality born from the green vine sword directly transformed into a sword spirit. Now, to call it an immortal sword is absolutely deserved. Although I lost some blood, it seems I can't use this life-saving order casually in the future. But this time, it was definitely worth it. As the saying goes, doing a good deed brings unexpected rewards. The order has become a spirit, and an immortal sword is born. Half a month later, Ji Yuan arrived at Jun Tian Mansion. There isn't really anything particularly notable here. The only thing worth mentioning is the legendary Left Madman, who was once the best in the world. Unfortunately, with the death of Left Madman, the entire Left family has been in decline for many years. Now, the younger generation. I don't even know the name of Left Sword Immortal anymore. Ji Yuan sighed. I should still try to find descendants of the Left family, but because I've cultivated the 3 flavors true fire, my magical power is even stronger now. I feel like my eyesight has also improved somewhat. A vendor selling baked flatbreads appeared before me. Ji Yuan was surprised to find this person's aura, while not demonic, is still rather unusual. It looks like bad luck. Ji Yuan walked over and said, "Old brother, give me 2 pancakes." He then took a bite, and it was surprisingly good. Ji Yuan wanted to figure out what exactly was on him, so he ate while following the vendor selling pancakes. The vendor also noticed, looking puzzled. He suddenly turned around and asked, "Sir, why are you following me?" Ji Yuan didn't say anything else. He just praised the pancakes for being delicious. "Give me 2 more." "Why have you been following me?" Ji Yuan chuckled. "That's the idea." So Ji Yuan kept eating and following him along the way. In the end, he had eaten all the dozen or so cakes. The cake seller was scared. He took out the last 2 cakes and said to Ji Yuan, "Here, take them. Please, don't follow me anymore, okay?" Ji Yuan smiled and happily agreed. All right. I won't take advantage of you. Shall I write you a few characters? I'll go buy some ink and brushes. Wait for me here." The pancake seller reluctantly agreed. Ji Yuan went to the nearby bookstore. He took out 3 cash coins. He said to the shopkeeper, "Shopkeeper, may I borrow your brush and paper? May I write a few words?" The boss, seeing Ji Yuan's attire, only took 2 cash coins, saying that he, too, was a scholar. "There's a writing desk over there. Help yourself." Ji Yuan smiled, unfurled the rice paper, and began to write. The 4 characters, "Evil cannot suppress righteousness," were written in one go. The shop owner slightly parted his lips. These characters are not just well written, they are extraordinary. He was a little stunned. Ji Yuan took the written characters and walked out. He went to find the owner of the pastry shop, but the pastry seller had already disappeared without a trace. Ji Yuan thought to himself, "I really am quite idle. I want to help him, but he doesn't want it." The bookstore owner lifted the hem of his robe, and chased after him out of the shop. "Sir, please wait. I have some fine Xian paper here. I can give you some. Can you write a few words for me?" Look at the shopkeeper's eager expression. Ji Yuan casually handed the paper in his hand to him. "How about this? Just give me 2 cents back." The shop owner was pleasantly surprised and very careful. He took the paper and carefully examined it. These characters have strong brushstrokes, and they're very elegant. They should be framed. Ji Yuan extended his hand. 2 cash. The boss came to his senses. Oh, sir, please wait a moment. But he didn't take 2 cash. Instead, he directly grabbed a small handful of silver. He offered it with both hands. "Sir, please accept it." Ji Yuan smiled. "Oh." He directly gave several hundred times more. "It's worthwhile." As the saying goes, a kind deed is often repaid with abandonment. With a keen eye for talent, one seeks for great value. Ji Yuan continued to wander around Jun Tianfu. He walked past a tea house that was doing good business. A storyteller had just finished telling a segment of a story. In this era, storytellers are generally well-traveled and well-informed individuals. Ji Yuan stepped closer. He bowed and asked, "May I ask if the elder knows any news about the Zhou family?" The Zhou family, the one that once dominated the martial world decades ago. The elder frowned. He looked at Ji Yuan carefully. He observed his wide sleeves and green robe, and the wooden hairpin in his hair. "Your hands are slender, and you're not strong. I curiously ask, sir, are you a martial artist?" Ji Yuan chuckled. "Old sir, you've misunderstood. I'm not someone from the Jianghu. It's just that my ancestors owed a debt to the Zhuas. I'm here to repay their kindness to my family." The old man sighed softly. Even many city folk don't know this. The Zhou family was once very prominent. They were at the height of their glory. It's a pity that the sword intent postscript left behind by Zhou Jianxian brought his family utter ruin. Now, the Zhou family's old residence has become the Qian mansion. Ji Yuan stood quietly in front of the Zhou family's old residence. Now, at the Qian mansion, I wonder if the Zhou family is truly gone for good. Muttering to himself, Ji Yuan passed a small food stall, selling steamed buns from early morning. The owner was storming out, his face filled with anger, shouting, "I'll definitely win it back." Oh. So that aura on his head really was bad luck. It's a shame, fate really is wonderful. On the other side, the bookstore owner has already framed Ji Yuan's writing. This counts as a decree left by Ji Yuan. Although it doesn't have much power, it can still ward off evil and protect against harm. When a patrol from the underworld passes by, they see the divine light of the great sage and quietly enter the house to check. In their eyes, the four large characters on the wall gave off a feeling of great righteousness and brightness, abnormally dazzling. Even with their magical powers, they couldn't look at it for long. To see the words is to see the person. The person who wrote these words had an unfathomable artistic conception, mentality, and cultivation. The two messengers bowed deeply. "Write down this address. We will take better care of you in the future." Ji Yuan arrived at an inn and checked in. He started chatting with the innkeeper. He heard that the inn had been operating for over 100 years. Ji Yuan became interested. "Are you very familiar with this place?" The shopkeeper looked smug. "Sir, feel free to ask me anything." Ji Yuan bowed. "I'm also somewhat of a wanderer in the martial arts world. I heard that a left sword immortal lived here decades ago. I wanted to visit his former residence, but I couldn't find the Zhou family, unfortunately." The shopkeeper sighed. "There are very few people left from the Zhou family now. I only know that during their most difficult times, they held funerals every month." Ji Yuan asked if the Zhou family had any descendants. The shopkeeper said he didn't know, but there's a blacksmith shop outside the city. It said that the Zhou family's weapons were all made there. Even Zhou Jianxian's divine weapon. Ji Yuan was overjoyed, bowing and expressing thanks, many thanks to the shopkeeper. The next morning, Ji Yuan arrived at the blacksmith shop outside the city, the Yan family shop. The blacksmiths inside the shop were busy working, hammering away. Ji Yuan asked if they could make a sword hilt. "Can you do that here?" The blacksmith master said it was no problem. "Come inside and let's measure the dimensions of the sword." Ji Yuan entered the house with a smile on his face. The blacksmith said, "Sir, please take out your sword and let me have a look." Ji Yuan took out the Qingting sword. He laid it on the table. "A Qingting vine as the hilt. Your sword is quite unique. Is there anything special about it?" "It was forged in your Yan family shop 80 years ago. The sword's name is Qingying." For a moment, the noisy sound of the hammering in the shop completely stopped. As the saying goes, hard work pays off. Don't say that floating clouds will always obscure the sun. The middle-aged blacksmith chuckled. "A good name, a good name. It might have been forged by an old master from our ancestors." Ji Yuan smiled slightly. "Master, haven't you heard of this name?" The blacksmith hurriedly said he hadn't, but it's still so sturdy after 80 years. That shows the quality of our work is excellent. Ji Yuan looked at the old master craftsman to one side. "Oh, indeed, 80 years is a long time. You've all forgotten that it was the weapon of left sword immortal, but you all forgot, it won't forget, right?" Just as the words were spoken, the green vine sword suddenly let out a sharp sword cry. Ji Yuan continued, "I am not the enemy of the Zhou family. It's just that Zhou Jianxian did me a great favor. I just want to know if the Zhou family still has descendants. I wish to repay them." An old craftsman couldn't hold back anymore. He stood up and scolded. Since you've already obtained the longsword of clear shadow, the left sword immortal's secret manual should also be in your hands. Why are you still looking for his descendants? The left family has already harmed our Yen family enough. We don't know anything about his descendants. It has nothing to do with us. These words were spoken. The people in the shop shouted in unison. They were filled with righteous indignation. It seemed like they were all from the Yen family. Ji Yuan is now an immortal cultivator. He can use his spiritual eye to see the aura. Although these people were cursing the Zhou family, their auras were strangely tense. It was as if they were hiding something. Ji Yuan laughed heartily. He said, no wonder the Zhou family was close with your Yen family back then. He then cupped his hands and saluted. It's been decades already. You are still protecting the descendants of the Zhou family. It's been decades already, and you are worthy of respect. Don't worry. I'm not some wandering martial artist, and I don't want anything from the Zhou family. Mortal martial arts. It means nothing to me. I just want to help his descendants. That's all. The ivy sword on the table suddenly levitated on its own. It spun around Ji Yuan as if it were a living creature. In the end, the sword point faced downward, hovering in front of Ji Yuan. Everyone was dumbfounded. They held their breath, unable to say a word. There is only one thought in his mind, the sword immortal. The middle-aged blacksmith cautiously asked with reverence, Sir, are you the left sword immortal, or no? Are you the immortal that Left Li has been desperately searching for? Ji Yuan casually responded, an immortal? To be precise, a person who cultivates to become an immortal. Does the left family still have descendants? If not, so I left. And this time, no one dared to ignore it. Since it's an immortal, it definitely has nothing to do with the Jianghu's vendetta. The renowned blacksmith clasped his fists in a bow. I dare not deceive the immortal. The Zhou family does indeed still have descendants. Then, opening a small door to the side, he said, Yu Tian, Yoshin, come out and meet the immortal. Call everyone else over too. From the sound of it, there seemed to be quite a few descendants of the Zhou family. About 10 minutes. Ji Yuan finally saw the nervous and excited Zhou family members. Of course, they all now use the surname Yen. The elder said, Mr. Ji, these are all the remaining descendants of the Zhou family. We've done all we could. Seeing these descendants of the Zhou family lacking all sharpness, Ji Yuan thought, perhaps this is a good thing. Then he waved his hand. The Qingting sword automatically flew over. All the Zhou family members gently touched the hilt of the sword. I need to confirm something. Are you really who you say you are? As the saying goes, a sage's title is not ordinary. In the end, the sword immortal was found. The Qingting sword has a special connection with the left sword immortal. It can distinguish whether these people are real or fake. Watching these people lightly touch the Qingting sword with their small, V-shaped fingers, the sword rings out, crisp and clear. It can be proven that they are indeed the descendants of left sword immortal. At this moment, Ji Yuan hesitated. Should he give them the martial arts manual left by left sword immortal? They are living peacefully now. If they take the manual, will they return to the Jianghu? But reality slapped Ji Yuan in the face. A middle-aged man from the left family handed him a booklet. He said this was the sword technique manual left by their great-grandfather. All right. It was my own blindness. You guys had it all along. So, the truth should be that left sword immortal passed down the sword techniques to his descendants. But no matter how good the martial arts are, it depends on who practices them. In the end, the left family had no one capable at all. They were forced into ruin and destruction. Ji Yuan took out the letter from Zhou Li from his bosom, and handed it to the descendant of the Zhou family. As for the long sword, Qingying, before Ji Yuan finished speaking, the suspended Qingting sword let out a clear ring, immediately flying back behind him, revealing only the hilt. Ji Yuan chuckled, what are you afraid of? Now you are the Qingting sword. Then turn to the Zhou family and say, this sword cannot be given to you, but Zhou Li raised my sword for decades. I appreciate that. Now I give you two choices. First, I will use all my strength to leave a decree that can ensure the peace of your home, safe and sound. I can even go to any lengths. Please ask the city god to take care of your family. Afterwards, you can still serve as an official in the underworld. Secondly, I can stay here for a while and teach you the true meaning of swordsmanship. So, what do you plan to choose? Seeing their conflicted expressions, Ji Yuan said that you don't need to answer right now. Take the night to think it over. Tell me tomorrow. After speaking, he bid farewell to the blacksmith of the Yen family. He said he'd come back tomorrow. The blacksmith hurriedly bowed and said, yes. Mr. Ji, take care. The immortal is leaving. No one dared to stop him. Everyone could only watch Ji Yuan leave. After he left, everyone couldn't hold back any longer, excitedly shouting, we saw an immortal. There really are immortals. No wonder the younger generation of the Zhou family haven't achieved much. So it was because their ancestor received guidance from an immortal. Uncle Baran. Swoli, which one will you choose? The crowd started discussing excitedly. Everyone was incredibly excited. The oldest elder of the Yen family coughed a few times. Let the Swa family decide on this matter. The rest of you, leave. Swa family member, Uncle Yen, what should we do here? The old man interrupted directly. I already said it. You all decide this matter yourselves. He then picked up the teacup on the table. The younger member of the left family hurriedly said, Grandfather Yen, I'll take care of it. The old man quickly took the cup away. What do you understand? This was used by an immortal. I'm going to keep it as an offering. As night fell, the Zhou family gathered together. They began discussing which option to choose. It wasn't until the next morning that the Yen family realized they hadn't slept all night. But this was normal. Anyone would be torn in this situation. Ji Yuan arrived as promised. He came to the blacksmith's shop. Have you all made your decision? The Zhou family members said they haven't. The elder of the Yen family was shocked. You all. The Zhou family members bowed to Ji Yuan. Mr. Ji, may I ask you a question? Ji Yuan smiled. Go ahead. Was most of the martial arts passed down by our ancestor, guided by you, sir? Or is it mostly his natural talent? It seems they really believe that left sword immortal swordsmanship is related to immortality. Ji Yuan calmly replied. Suo Li is a martial genius. Naturally, talent accounts for the vast majority. Then, Mr. Ji, we've made our decision. Choose the first one. The leader of the Zhou family bowed his hands and said, as long as we don't forget our surname. One day, we will be able to take it back ourselves. Please, sir, ensure our peace. Ji Yuan smiled, slapped the table, and stood up. Not bad. The sharpness is back. He picked up the brush on the table and lightly dipped it in ink. Then, on the rice paper, the dragonflies and the phoenix dances. Peace and good health. No evil can harm. Set your mind and strive forward. The effort will not be in vain. Once the law is established, a beam of light visible to all people. It flashes and disappears from the paper. Even if others sees it, it's ineffective. If the Zhou family bloodline is severed, then the decree will self-destruct. As the words fell, thunder and lightning fell from the sky out of nowhere, as if echoing Ji Yuan's words. And Ji Yuan, in a good mood, stood with his sword. Zhou family, watch closely. Don't blink. Then, the entire figure transformed into a light, dancing dragon, moving through the courtyard while wielding the sword. The figure was erratic and elusive. The swordplay was ethereal and boundless. At that moment, fine rain began to fall from the sky. Yet, not a single drop of water came close to Ji Yuan's sword. The water then flowed and shifted with the sword's light. The Zhou family members and Old Master Yen on the side were staring fixedly at the sword dance of the immortal in the rain, not even daring to blink. This is the form of an immortal, exquisite and extraordinary. Ji Yuan sheathed his sword and said, this is the dragon's dance sword intent. How much you can comprehend depends on yourselves. After saying that, he turned and entered the house. Old Master Yen is paying his respects. He just forgot to step aside earlier. Please forgive him, sir. I don't mind at all. Who could possibly mind? Old Master Yen is overjoyed. Thank you, sir. The descendants of the Zhou family also bow in respect. Thank you for your grace, sir. We vow to honor your immortal position for all eternity. Ji Yuan looked at the descendant of the Zhou family and admonished. This decree will ensure your safety. Naturally, there is no problem. But if, in the future, you act recklessly, it will run away on its own. The Zhou family descendant bowed again. I will certainly follow your teachings, sir. He then took the decree. The excitement on his face. As expected, after doing all this, a phantom of a chess piece flashed through Ji Yuan's sleeve. Ji Yuan turned his head and asked, Master Yen, is my sword sheath ready? Old Master Yen looked embarrassed. He had thought the sword sheath was just a joke. Ji Yuan didn't get angry either. He smiled, I really need a scabbard. Then I'll come back in a few days to get it. He thought to himself, I'll just get the whole family to make dozens of different styles. Let the immortal choose himself. Just as he was about to turn around and ask, Ji Yuan had disappeared without a sound. He stepped through the rain and arrived at the city god temple, since he had promised the descendants of the Zhou family. A vendor at the entrance asked Ji Yuan if he wanted to buy some incense. Ji Yuan shook his head repeatedly. The incident at the Jiang God Temple had left him with a psychological shadow. He then bought a box of pastries and 2 pots of water. Ji Yuan entered the side hall of the temple. If we're talking about the most approachable official in the city god temple, the easiest to talk to, In most cases, it's still the literary judge. Ji Yuan arranged the purchased offerings, bowed before the statue, and channeled his spiritual energy to speak. I respectfully request the appearance of the literary judge of the Juntianfu City God Temple. Inside the underworld, the literary judge heard an incredibly clear voice. It echoed in his ear. He immediately knew that a master had arrived. Not long after, Ji Yuan cupped his hands and bowed to the literary judge. He wanted to ask him for a small favor. Seeing the tribute and Ji Yuan's attitude, and unable to gauge the depth of the other person, the literary judge was also very polite. Then Ji Yuan explained the situation to the Wen judge. As the saying goes, dancing with a sword in the rain is wonderfully extraordinary. He risked his reputation to keep his promise. Ji Yuan explained the situation to the judge. Originally, these matters were for the judge, a mere trifle. In addition, Ji Yuan's cultivation was unfathomable, and the judge also wanted to cultivate a good relationship, so he readily agreed, saying he would personally go to the Zhou families tonight. Ji Yuan was overjoyed. He performed a bow to express his thanks. Seeing everything was settled, Ji Yuan looked relaxed and happy. That night, the Wen judge and the Wu judge arrived at the Zhou families together. It was the calligraphy left by Ji Yuan for the descendants of the Zhou family. The two judges were greatly shocked. Who exactly is this Mr. Ji? This decree is not something an ordinary person could write. Only a Taoist immortal could do this. At that moment, the descendant of the Zhou family suddenly woke up. Vaguely, he smelled the fragrance of sandalwood. He got up with a strange look on his face to check. Two officials appeared before him, wearing dark-colored official robes and hats. One with a red beard and one with a black beard, Grim Reapers. It was incredibly frightening. The descendant of the Zhou family fell to the ground in fright. You! Judge Wu burst into laughter. Judge Wen said, Mr. Zhou, don't be afraid. We are the civil and military judges under the city god. I was entrusted by a master. I came here to check things out. Now that the matter is resolved, I will take my leave. Master Zhuo's wife has also woken up. She asked what happened to you. Master Zhuo hurriedly explained. I just saw something divine. The judge has arrived. Mr. Ji said he would greet the city god. It's actually true. He really is an immortal. The next morning. This time, he didn't want to alarm the family. He just wanted to look at the various sword sheaths in front of him. There were at least dozens of them. Ji Yuan was dumbfounded. Has the Yen family taken the wrong medicine? He then reached out to pick up the light blue wooden scabbard. Fine, I'll go with this one. He originally planned to leave 101 as a token of thanks. Ji Yuan helplessly took out 2 silver coins, and threw them at Yen Gong, who was hammering iron. Which bastard threw this at me? Ji Yuan stuck out his tongue. Who made you all make so many sword hilts? I only needed 1 sword. Old man Yen quickly covered his mouth. Did I just curse an immortal? A group of artisans checked the racks one by one. Mine was chosen. The other artisans looked disappointed. Old Master Yen turned around and walked away. The craftsman hurriedly called out, Master, this silver should at least be half mine, right? Humph. You know this silver was given by the immortal. I'll take it to the ancestral hall and offer it there. Everyone will see it when they burn incense. The man was completely dumbfounded. Ha! Ji Yuan arrived outside the city, sitting on a large rock. He looked at the sword sheath that cost a fortune. The Qing Ting sword made a faint sound, indicating that it really liked the sword sheath. Ji Yuan smiled and said, Don't rush. I need to temper it first. Otherwise, it won't withstand your antics. Then, Ji Yuan attached the sword handle to the sword sheath. I channeled my spiritual energy. In an instant, it wrapped around the entire sword hilt. Then Ji Yuan used his right hand to perform a sword-pointing gesture. Spiritual energy surged erratically. As his wrist and fingertips moved, 2 inscriptions appeared on the scabbard. Spiritual Vine of Azure, concealing 10,000 zhang. Ji Yuan smiled and said to the green vine sword, Go. The green vine sword flew with a whistling wind. With a whoosh, it flew into the scabbard by itself, perfectly fitted. As the saying goes, a costly scabbard was obtained. The spiritual green vine hides its sharpness. What's going on? The matter of the Zhou family is concluded. His 5 viscera have already nurtured the 5 elemental energies. He even possesses the 3 true fires. Although he doesn't yet have the great refining method, it doesn't hinder his current cultivation. As for the 5 qi converging to the yuan and the 3 flowers returning to 1, as mentioned in the bright book, He doesn't need to consider those for now, although there are countless cultivation methods. But all paths lead to the same destination. A true enlightened person must have a deep understanding of the Tao. They must understand the laws of all things. Once you have this clarity, Ji Yuan only feels that his thoughts are clear, and his state of mind has improved greatly. His spiritual power. It feels like I'm merging with the spiritual energy of the outside world. I have a sense of merging. At this moment, the 5 chess pieces in the artistic conception appeared and disappeared. They were like stars hanging in the sky. But as I walked, Ji Yuan suddenly found that he couldn't move. It was like walking in water. I felt resistance. The common people passing by are incredibly clear in Ji Yuan's eyes. The aura of immortality, the incense aura, the aura of humanity, the aura of the 5 elements. These auras swirl towards the sky. And the vast aura of the heaven and earth. He was once again influenced by them. In this moment, Ji Yuan seemed to see the changing of dynasties, the shifting tides of power, immortal and demon conflicts, evil and chaos spreading, the land in turmoil, disasters one after another. Great changes are about to befall the world, perhaps in 10,000 years, or a few thousand years, or even sooner. Then, mountains and rivers will inevitably be shattered, the heavens will collapse and the earth will crumble, and all living beings will suffer. At this time, the life force in Ji Yuan's body is rapidly leaving his body. The cost of glimpsing the changes in the way of heaven is immense. It is a price that must be paid with one's life. Just as Ji Yuan thought he was doomed, 5 stars shone brightly. They were 5 chess pieces. Ji Yuan suddenly realized what they were. The world, the mountains, and rivers were the chessboard. All living beings and spirits were the pieces. And he is the one who holds his hand. With a loud crash, Ji Yuan fell to the ground. He groaned in pain on the ground. Blood was oozing from his right eye. The surrounding people were talking among themselves. Ji Yuan struggled to get up and ran forward, muttering to himself, "Fate! Fate! The chessboard of heaven and earth, the way to break it. It must exist. It must." Suddenly, the vendor saw someone stealing. He quickly chased after them, but was frightened by Ji Yuan's appearance. Bao stared blankly as he walked away. Ji Yuan, like a madman, ran out of the city. He headed straight for the wild mountains and forests. He came to a stone cave in a mountain wall and sat down. He opened the chess box, took out the black pieces. At this moment, what lies before him is no longer an ordinary chessboard, but the grand trend of the universe that is about to unfold. Every move is irreversible. As it is said, breaking through the way of heaven brings danger to life. The universe is the chessboard, seeking a breakthrough. At this moment, he has entered a profound realm. The passage of time has no effect on his consciousness. Yet, his body still feels a slight effect. Autumn passed, winter arrived, no matter how mysterious. Ji Yuan's body grew increasingly thin. One night, a lone wolf carefully approached the stone cave wall in the night. It stared intensely at the motionless Ji Yuan. Baring its teeth, it was ready to pounce. Then, there was a buzzing sound. The Qingting sword automatically unsheaths to protect its master. Blocking in front of Ji Yuan, Old Wolf looks at the Qingting sword, which is radiating cold air from top to bottom. Without hesitation, he turns and runs. On the other side, Yin Zhaoxian decides to take the exam. After teaching for a few years, he realized that in order to promote his own ideas, being just a teacher is not enough. You also need to enter the court. He and little Yin Qing arrived at Ji Yuan's small courtyard. They looked at the jujube tree full of fruit. It's strange, really. After Ji Yuan left, this jujube tree didn't bloom or bear fruit for 2 years. But this year, it actually bore fruit again. The two opened the gate to the courtyard. They were preparing to clean up as usual. But when the door opened, the father and son froze. Because there was someone in the yard. This person was obviously not Ji Yuan. Instead, it was an elderly man with a white beard and hair, wearing a white robe. Yin Zhaoxian asked how the old man ended up here. The old man saw that the Yin father and son only hesitated slightly. She smiled. "I presume you are Mr. Ji's friend from the academy. May I ask your name, master? Do you know Mr. Ji? I am Yin Zhaoxian, and this is my son, Yin Qing. May I ask your name, old sir?" The old man laughed and said, "I am Yin Hong. I once met Mr. Ji by chance in the rain. He's also his friend." Watching the old man's calm demeanor, he didn't look like a robber at all. Master Yin bowed. "It turns out you're a friend of Master Ji's. Unfortunately, Master Ji has gone on a long journey." The old man smiled. "I know. The jujube tree hasn't borne fruit in the 2 years since Master Ji left, but it finally has this year. It's really not enough to eat. Master Ian laughed. I suppose Mr. G didn't bring much. This time, old sir, you've hit the jackpot. You can eat your fill. The old man's eyes lit up at these words. He chuckled. Master is jesting. I can't eat my fill, and it's not convenient to eat freely. Let's do this. I'll just have one bite. Does Master Ian agree? Ian Zhaoxian looked puzzled. One bite? The old man smiled and said, that's right. Just one bite. Ian Zhaoxian waved his hand. What's there to disagree about? You're a friend of the master. Please, go ahead and eat. Shiner, pick some fruit for the old master. The old man waved his hand. No need, no need. Don't bother. As he spoke, the old man looked up again, and a smile curled at the corners of his mouth. He laughed heartily. Eat the jujubes. A faint, almost inaudible dragon's roar echoed. A violent wind suddenly rose in the courtyard, and the entire jujube tree began to sway. Countless dates were swept from the branches by the gale. They were directly blown into the old man's wide-open mouth. In just a few seconds, the gale stopped. Half the dates on the tree were gone. The old man smiled, wiping his mouth. Not bad, not bad. The taste was truly excellent. The Ian father and son were both dumbfounded. The old man's voice came, Master Ian, I only had one bite. You saw it. This. As the saying goes, the small courtyard persimmon tree finally bears fruit. Just one bite of the old Dragon King. Ian Zhaoxian's heart twitched slightly. I really didn't recognize the true examiner. Thank you for reminding me. The old man really only took one bite. It's just that we were startled. Next time, old man, please give us a heads up. In Hong smiled and nodded. No wonder Mr. G's the only friend he has in the county. Truly carefree. Then he smiled and took out a pot. This is for Mr. G. Would the master like to try it first to see how it tastes? Master Ian boldly replied, why not? The two of them raised their cups and drank. Ian Zhaoxian felt the sweetness, fragrance, and richness. A surge of warmth flowed inside him. His cheeks flushed red. Just as he finished saying, good, he collapsed on the table, motionless. Ian Qing, who was eating dates nearby, panicked. He hurriedly called out, Father, are you alright? Huh, it's alright, it's alright. Master Ian is just drunk. Let him sleep in the courtyard tonight. Go get a blanket to cover your father. After Ian Qing left, the old man chuckled and returned to the jujube tree. Let me offer you a drink too. Then he collapsed by the tree roots. The water didn't soak into the ground. Not even the soil got wet. When Ian Qing and his mother arrived at the courtyard, the old man was gone. The next morning, Ian Zhao woke up first. He looked up. He found that he had slept a whole night in Juan courtyard. His wife and children were also watching over him. Ian Zhao stood up. He had sat up the whole night. He didn't feel any stiffness or soreness at all. Instead, he felt refreshed and invigorated. He was to set off for the examination tomorrow. Another gust of autumn wind blew. Ji Yuan has been sitting in the stone cave for 3 years. He slowly placed down a piece. The chess piece shattered the moment it landed. Ji Yuan's whole body trembled. He finally woke up. Outside the stone cave, the Qingting sword excitedly hummed incessantly, as if celebrating Ji Yuan's awakening. Ji Yuan opened his mouth, but could not make a sound. His dry throat could only make hoarse exhalation sounds. At this moment, he had no other thoughts, only food and water. He struggled to walk out of the cave. He reached out, wanting to pick wild persimmons from the tree, but at that moment his body was incredibly weak. He couldn't do it at all. The vine sword made a sharp sound and withdrew. 2 persimmons fell into Ji Yuan's hands. Ji Yuan didn't care about anything at all. He didn't wash or wipe them. He just opened his mouth and started tearing into them. The sword hummed and sang, and the Qingqing vine sword slashed several times in a row. The persimmons on the tree fell one after another. In less than 10 minutes, Ji Yuan had finished them all. He shouted, not enough, still not enough. Then he came to the small stream nearby, and grabbed fish from the river, swallowing them raw. In the end, he even stuck his head into the stream. He started drinking it in large gulps. After a long while, Ji Yuan lay on the edge of the stream, panting heavily. He raised his hand and looked at it. It had been as thin as dry bones. It's a little better now. Ji Yuan eased his breathing. He gave a self-deprecating smile. The smile gradually grew wider. In the end, he laughed as if crazed. The laughter shook the surroundings. Birds and beasts fled in the mountains and forests. As the saying goes, the wind and clouds change, revealing the secrets of the heavens. No regrets, for all beings. Ji Yuan sat up. Not eating or drinking for 3 years was extremely dangerous. My cultivation back then was only enough to last a few months. Luckily, I've been constantly deducing the heavenly mandate. My cultivation has greatly improved, after playing Go for so long. Although I haven't fully understood the key to the great heavenly tribulation, but I've also understood many things. Now, I'm in the midst of it. yet I must also transcend it. I can't get too deeply involved. He now understands that finding a destined person in life is essential. Humans, gods, ghosts, demons, spirits, immortals, Buddhas, even demons. To lay out the world, to resist the great calamity, requires one new piece after another. Improving one's cultivation is also necessary, otherwise, the game will be over before I'm finished. It seems I'm not destined to join any immortal sect or renowned family. This great calamity only gives one chance. There's still plenty of time. Life is like a game of chess. Once a move is made, there's no regret. Let's wait and see. Ji Yuan gradually regained his composure. He looked at his clothes, dirty and tattered, and his hairpin was nowhere to be found. He sighed. How did it end up like this? Just tidy up a bit,